Rise and shine, my sinners. When Father Evil starts his day, he gets a little deadly. Deadly Grounds coffee has the richest, smoothest flavor you'll find anywhere. It's sinfully delicious. Once you go deadly, you never go back. Order yours at getdeadly.com. Coffee's so good, it's scary.
Hello and welcome to a special episode of Then Is Now Podcast. I'm your host, Re-Gor, and today's show is the first in a new series within the series that we're doing called Pop Culture Chat. Basically, we're just going to have guests on and have a stream of consciousness discussion about all things pop culture, including movies, TV shows, comics, more. Everything and anything is fair game. So joining me on this inaugural episode is frequent guest co-host Spency. How's it going, Spence? Back in college?
Oh, yes, I'm back. I'm happy to be back, and it's both stressful and relieving to be here.
I can totally understand. Oh, my God. Awesome. So, also joining us is newcomer to the show who recently appeared on an episode of our live streaming series called Fright Lounge. It's Michael. What's new, Michael?
Hey. Just joining you from Hawaii. Yeah, that's right. I live in Hawaii. It's awesome, but it's also just a place.
Which you never did send me a picture of the Hawaii Five-0 statue, by the way.
Hey, you're right. I never did. Jesus Christ, I've lived here for 10 years and I've never done that. What the hell's wrong with me? Sorry about that.
That's all right. One day. The day you decide to move back to America, you'll be like, oh, shit, I got to do that.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Back to the mainland, I should say.
Yeah.
And also joining us today is podcaster Justin Cooper. Justin, it's been a long time, man, since you've been on the show.
I was just thinking, was it our interview with Ron Mars? Was the last one?
Was it Ron? Yeah, because we did Burt Ward, who played Robin on Batman. We talked about Crisis on Infinite Earths, and then we had Ron Mars on. I'm not sure what the order was on those, but
yeah, I'm not sure either. I just know what was it? We had a deep conversation with Burt Ward. That was great.
Yeah, he was awesome. And, Ron Mars was great, too. And, Mike, and you guys, Spence, and listeners, if you don't know, Ron Mars is a Marvel and DC artist. And his specialty back in the day, and it may still be, was the Silver Surfer and Green Lantern. In fact, I think he even did the crossover comic that came out with those.
Yeah, the Marvel versus DC. And we found out that not a day goes by where someone does not ask him about the Wolverine versus Lobo match.
Right.
Oh, sorry, Ron. Yeah.
Was he the dude that we spoke to that knew Jim Starlin?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. We talked about Dreadstar. I think you and I read a fair amount of Dreadstar in prep, I believe.
Yeah.
I
got
liked
the
it too.
hardcover.
It was pretty good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was very good. So, folks, if you haven't already figured out, this show is basically just going to be a free form. Like I said, there's no structure. We're just going to shoot the shit about stuff we love to talk about. So, Why don't you sit back and get ready for a fun conversation? I'll start things up. I got a couple topics I wanted to bring up. In terms of pop culture, I can't recall now. I think it was a week or two ago. My wife and I had the good fortune to go with 4 of her friends to see Rick Springfield perform in New Hampshire.
Woohoo!
It was awesome. And they Men at Work. Actually, Tommy Two-Tone opened first.
Oh, no way!
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
His song, for those who don't know, is 8675309. And he did a bunch of other
One of the best
songs.
songs from the 80s. I love that song.
Yeah. And then Men at Work did their hits, Down Under and Who Can It Be Now? Which, of course, we'd been drinking, so every so often I'm like, I would look at someone and go, "What? But who can it be now?" I just don't know.
Who can it be? Who?
Who can it be?
They never answered the
Oh,
question.
my God.
What the hell is Vegemite?
Right.
I know, right?
There was one moment though where we were sitting in the middle of the concert, enjoying the shit out of it. I mean, Mike, I sent you videos from it. I think I sent you some too, Spence, right?
You did. Spence, are you there?
Yeah, I was muted.
Doctor.
I've been muted. I've been talking to myself. This happens to me a lot.
That's all right. I do it always.
You've probably sent me anything to do with your General Hospital adventures, Pop. It's everything you do.
I've done everything for you.
You've done nothing for me.
I've done everything.
He played all his greatest hits. It was awesome. But there's this moment where we're in the audience, right, enjoying the show. Now I'm sitting there, my wife is to the left of me, and her 4 friends are to the left of her. And the 2 friends right next to her stand up and start dancing. Well, this dude behind us gets pissed, and he takes his phone and puts the flashlight on and, like, sticks it in between their heads. And from my vantage point, I thought he was touching them or something. So I leaned over and I slapped his arm out of the way. And he got all fucking pissy with me and got in my face. And then he starts, like, I don't know if he was or not, but he's recording me with his phone. At least that's what he wanted me to believe. And it was funny because something snapped in my head, and it's not what you think. I didn't go nutso Wolverine and punch him in the face or anything, which I was about to, but I all of a sudden went into shameless self-promotion mode, and I'm like, oh, you recording me? Then is now a podcast. Record me now. Let it go viral. I want it to go viral. I'm like, I'll fucking kick your ass, man.
That's awesome.
Oh man! So I haven't seen that.
So was it just a misunderstanding then? Like he
was
just
pissed because they stood up and he couldn't see the concert. He couldn't see the stage.
Okay.
So security came. They moved us to another row of seats that were actually closer, and there was no one behind us, so they could stand up and dance if they wanted.
But they weren't standing like on the chairs, right?
No, they were just standing up and in front of their seats. And
you're not going to dance to Tommy Two Tone. I mean, come on.
Right.
I know.
And I lifted my arm up. I was going to punch him in the head, and Charlene grabbed my arm and pulled me back. And that's when security came. Oh my God! So
it's like at that point, it's like, how well can you really see the stage anyway?
Right.
Like, just listen. You're there to listen to the music, you know? And
yeah.
You know what the guy looks like.
And they were IMAGing things on giant video screens like they always do nowadays on either side of the stage. So there was every seat was a good vantage point.
Yeah.
What was the venue like? Was it like a Coliseum, or was it like I don't know if you've been to Mohegan Sun, but like that.
We saw what's his name, Frankie Valli, at the Mohegan Sun a few months ago.
Oh yeah, I heard he was still touring.
Yeah, 87 years old, still belting out tunes. This wasn't huge.
This wasn't hitting them high notes.
Oh yeah.
Wow,
it was amazing. He couldn't dance; he just stood there and sang, but he was belting them out.
Sounds like a Tony Bennett and like his last tour, where he was just kind of sitting in a chair with Lady Gaga.
Oh
you
yeah,
know, just like, hey, this is crazy. You
yeah,
just kind of sitting there.
Let me ask my manager a question. Hey, honey, how big would you say the venue was in New Hampshire? Was it in Litchfield? Where was it? She doesn't remember. Well, it began with an L, but anyways, how big would you say it was? Okay, she compared it to Great Woods.
I remember Great Woods.
Yeah, Guilford, New Hampshire. That's
Guilford.
What it was.
Yep.
Yeah. So it was
I was just thinking of my history of New England, and I only know 2 towns in Lexington and Concord.
Oh, there you go.
You know?
That's hilarious.
But I'm a Connecticut guy, so I'm a New England guy. So I live in Illinois now, but I'm very familiar with the venues that you were talking about there.
Oh, there you go. And one of our friends who came with us lives in Connecticut now.
Oh, nice.
So that was kind of cool. So one other quick thing I wanted to bring up was I think I texted some of you guys. I think, Mike, I texted you this. There's this movie that I covered for Then Is Now. It's hands down one of the most amazing films I've seen in a long time. It's called Only Lovers Left Alive. And it's with Tom Hiddleston and Tilda Swinton. And they're basically these vampires that live forever. And it's like I said in the show that we did about it, not since Blade Runner and The English Patient has a movie just visually captured me from the beginning to the end. I could not take my eyes off it. In fact, I ended up watching it like 3 times in 3 days. It's so good. It's a slow burn. I know, Spence, you don't particularly like slow burns, but if you like Blade Runner and you like vampire stories, this is like totally different than any other vampire film you've ever seen. It's not overly graphic. It's not overly bloody. There is some blood in it, but it's just an amazing tale of two people who cannot die. So I highly recommend this movie.
I like Tilda Swinton a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like her too. I've grown to enjoy a lot of the stuff that she's in, but I wouldn't say that I dislike slow burns. It's that I find that it's very, very easy to screw up.
Right.
Like, I went and saw The Batman, and that was 3 hours, and I was on the edge of my seat for like 2 hours and 50 minutes out of those 3 hours.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and that was,
That
you know,
is fair.
considerably a slow burn.
Yeah.
So I just think that some movies do it right and some movies do it wrong and just end up losing me half the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, speaking of Batman, I don't know if we want to go down that road at all.
Yeah,
I know
whatever
Rod
road
said
you
he
want.
had some topics we're thinking of. I kind of avoided seeing it because I was like, oh, Jesus Christ, another fucking incarnation of Batman. And, you know, and I'm like, I'm burned out. I'm so tired. Like, can't they take a break from him for a few years and then do another one? Like, it just seems like constant, you know. So I really had this bad attitude and I didn't really want to see it. And, then it became available on like HBO Plus or something, and I was like, all right, you know, I'll watch HBO Max, and I watched it, and I like Spencer just said, I was like riveted. I like got like 15 minutes in, and I was like, oh my God, this is good.
Yeah.
And then I just totally lost track of time, and you know, I didn't even notice that it was long. Yeah.
Yeah, that happened. That's exactly what it felt like. It gave me the Braveheart moment of like, it felt like these two different movies in a way. But at the same time, it was so well choreographed that it didn't have any moment where I was like, okay, here's a good time to go pee.
Choreographed. Is there a dance number in there I missed?
Don't you
yeah,
remember
yeah.
the Bat 2C?
The bat, you see.
Isn't that what choreograph means?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
fight
okay,
scenes
it
can be
was-
choreographed too, though.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true
Movie
too. That's
pacing, you know.
You're right,
I was
okay.
following. Yeah.
But you know, the one thing I loved about that movie is, and that was the big takeaway for me, was they made Batman fucking scary. He was terrifying in that movie, and it was awesome.
he's just creepy. He just lurked.
And what
Yeah.
about the change at the end? Because
Looked at
your
people
point
at the
about him
corner of
being
his eye.
scary, and then you get to the end, and it's like he actually turns into a beacon of hope for these people, which is
Yeah.
so important for character development. He's
Yeah.
never had that in any other film. Ever. Not
That's
Michael
true.
Keaton, not Christian Bale, not Ben Affleck, anything. He's never been a beacon of hope until now.
Right.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I didn't even think about that, but there's this weird dichotomy of we want scary, but then at the same time we want like the Bruce Wayne that leads the Justice League by sheer principle. And then we want the Batman that works with all the cops. So they had to find this like weird mix of
Yeah.
all of it in between. And I thought it was done superbly well with the fact that he was at the crime scenes, but like he wasn't respected yet, but then eventually
Yeah,
he
yeah.
started doing everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was
And
the thing.
He solved most of them himself too. Like he didn't have to put it into a computer where Lucius Fox did it, or
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Right.
Even though he did team up with Alfred and all that, so but-
Yeah.
Well, and
Yeah.
that's what I was going to bring up too. Is that they took his detective skills and finally used them to its fullest.
Right.
You know, we haven't really seen that before. I mean, yeah, what was it, the last Christian Bale one where he had to hack into everybody's camera or every camera in the world to try and stop the bad guy, and it was like, no, he didn't.
Yeah.
Like you said, Justin, he didn't
Oh, that
need
was Dark
technology
Knight, yeah.
to solve it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that last Christian Bale movie left a sour taste in I think many
Yeah.
fans' mouths because it wasn't as good as you thought, and it doesn't hold up on subsequent watches.
No.
Whereas
I-
Dark Knight really does.
I
Yeah.
like it. I like this. I was
I don't
only
hate it,
disappointed
yeah.
with the lack of venom in Bane, but other than
Mhm.
that, I thought that that movie was good because of the villain and not so much really too much else. But the thing with Batman for people in my
Mhm.
generation, all the Gen Zers and stuff, is we grew up with the Batman Arkham games, which are widely popular and amazingly well done. So they take all of Batman's rogues gallery and take a bunch of his stories and adapt them into this one long video game that they make, and you encounter so many different villains and so many different situations. Like Scarecrow in one game is like this side mission that you can do. Scarecrow in another game is part of the main story, and in one of the later games, he's the main villain of everything. So there's a whole generation that knows something about Batman, and then there's this level of like they have to appeal to both my generation who know the Batman who goes solo and isn't really the best person and has this very flawed moral code, on top of all the people who have seen him prior and are expecting, something different.
Yeah.
There's so much media out there too about it. I mean, he's been around for 85 years. You've got, like 12 different movies or so. You know, I don't even know if it's because there's definitely like a lot. If you're including Justice League, and
there was 4 from the Michael Keaton one.
Yeah.
And 3 Christian Bales. Mm-hmm. And then he was in Batman vs Superman,
which I liked. It had a big plot hole, but I liked it.
It's not unwatchable. It's like he was in Suicide Squad.
That's right.
Yep, that was good. I thought that
appearance was good. Yeah,
he was in Justice League, which I will say.
Wait. Are we talking about the first Suicide Squad?
Or the Batman and Deadshot appearance in that movie?
I don't see why it was so bad.
I think it was the second Suicide Squad.
No, it was the first one.
Oh, it was the first one? Okay.
It was the first one.
Okay, the scene with Batman.
Yes.
The scene with Batman was okay. All right, the rest of that movie was horse shit. I'm sorry.
I think there's some watchable parts to that film. Like we were just talking about this on the Dork Night podcast the other day, that they did a great job with Killer Croc. And he doesn't get a lot of credit in that. And you're like, he looked awesome. He came in, he was imposing, he did his one water scene, and he was out. And I'm like, you know what? Good. He's not poor Slipknot.
I thought that was funnier than anything personally, because Slipknot's such a Z-lister that they were like, we're just going to show him and then kill him and call it a day. But I agree that having Killer Croc was really enjoyable for me, because all right, is it a poor movie? Yes, but does it have a lot of cool characters that I enjoy seeing that never get any love in the other movies? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I like the Suicide Squad films, and even the Harley Quinn one that came after. I like them so much more than Batman vs Superman and the non-Snyder Cut Justice League, which I fucking hated that movie until I watched the Snyder Cut, and then I really, really liked the Snyder version.
Wow, I have to ask why you're so down on it, because to me it was a C-, and then the Snyder Cut came out, and it's like, okay, you've turned a C- into a C+. Because it was like that
I
much.
wouldn't go that far. I would say that it was a C-. I don't think it was.
They're above average films. It's like they're not terrible. It's not like Plan Z from outer space.
For me, it started with Man of Steel. I fucking hated that movie because that was not my Superman. That was not, as you said, the beacon of hope. He was not a beacon of hope in that movie. He felt bad that he had powers. He felt bad for himself. It was just, he was dark and brooding, and the whole movie was dark. And I just really wish they hadn't gone that route with that character, because I wasn't expecting Christopher Reeve Superman, but at least something more, more uplifting in a film. And this was just, and then he kills General Zod in it, and I was like, really?
That was tough.
I personally, I agree with you that they didn't do Superman right, but I will concede to the fact that they wanted to do something different and wanted to have a bit more of a grittier take, because we have Christopher Reeve. Nobody is taking that away from us. So I don't see it any wrong that they have to have the Superman who now grapples with the fact that he had to kill his one connection to his home. And I was hoping that what they would flesh out is this would be where Superman changes, and kind of a reverse Injustice situation where he instead says, no, I'm not going to kill anybody. We're going to do this right. We're not going to have any problems anymore. Yeah. Something like that.
By the way, not to get off on I guess anything goes when it comes to tangents here on this show, but you mentioned Injustice, and there's an animated movie of that on HBO Max. And I think I sent it to you when I first found it, and I've only watched like the first 5 minutes in it. But in the first 5 minutes,
you can stop there.
Okay, I won't say anything then.
you can stop there. With the lines on the knuckles and all that. Oh my God,
I did not see the movie, but I played the game. Yeah. So I know the game. The story of 1 and 2, and 1 is a little better just for obvious reasons. But to me, the first Injustice does something very, very specific. Aside from the awesome storyline and what happens when Superman becomes the god that he is, specifically the Joker That game, I haven't seen the movie, but in that game, the Joker is spectacular. Once again, it's Mark Hamill. Can't go wrong there. But the way he's written is even better, because when I'm sorry, but when he gets thrown across the room, and then Batman and Superman are now have to have this conversation of what are we going to do about the Joker? Joker stands up, dusts himself off, cracks a joke at the expense of Superman's now dead wife and child, and sits down with no fear. That's Joker. That to me is what makes a great Joker.
That is well, actually, it's interesting because in this animation, Kevin Pollak, the actor, does the voice of the Joker, which is not bad. It's one of the things I actually really like. And Anson Mount does the voice of Batman.
Wow,
and
that's right. Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. If you like the video game series, if you like the comic series that they did, and they did a sequel to it and all that, they're great. This animated one is so different, and they went in such different directions that it really just was not my favorite thing. And I wanted to like it so much, and I could not even get past the stupid black line knuckles that they have when you look at the animation. It's really like I don't know, like a dark outline sort of thing. It's kind of like, for me, it was a hard watch, and I was like,
Yeah, I
watched it twice.
Like I said, 5 minutes. So I'll have to watch it again, or watch the whole thing, I should say.
I just want to say one thing about Man of Steel. I actually really loved it the first time I saw it, and then it doesn't hold up to subsequent viewings as well.
Yeah.
And I know, Roger, I know you hated it, but if I may sort of play the role that you guys were just doing about how much I hated Suicide Squad, but there were like the bits in it that were good. For me, Man of Steel, when the General Zod and blah 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 came down, and he was like fighting all three of them with super strength and at super speed, and that sequence there, I thought was really cool. They were like beating each other up, and then over the year,
wrecking the town.
Yeah,
it did. It looked great.
Then he took
there's a great car chase in Terminator 3, but it's like
right, exactly,
that movie captures the strength of Superman very well, and the intensity of flight was done amazingly. Like the way we see it before is like it was with the power that they had, but when you walk into Man of Steel, you're flying with Superman right down to the G-forces. You're sitting in your seat and you can almost feel the pressure.
That's a good point.
And I really loved that. I loved just that whole scene of him learning to fly and really figuring it out was really, really enjoyable.
Effects. Yeah, I like that. So, because it's all probably the same companies too. They're Warner Brothers and such.
Yeah. Oh, and speaking of that, that's one thing I liked about The Batman, which was that all these movies are done in these dark green kind of sepia, not sepia, but these green tones that kind of started with The Matrix. And The Batman was done in a sepia tone, which is, we haven't seen that before. And I loved it. I thought that was a great, atmosphere for the film.
Yeah.
That's that noir feeling. Yeah.
One of the things I loved about The Batman also is the lack of pointless humor injected into the movie for no fucking reason. I mean, Nolan didn't do much humor either, but I mean, just having the trend with Marvel lately is like joke, and Batman was just fucking serious through the whole thing, and I was like, thank you,
yeah. And whenever there was a joke, it was funny for the people in the scene as well.
Yeah,
it wasn't this like forced thing for the audience to kind of like slightly chuckle at. It was something that actually seemed to come a little bit more naturally. I agree with you there. That humor is hard.
Big difference like between that and like Peacemaker and like Thor: Love and Thunder.
Yeah,
I didn't see that one either. I have a minimal interest in seeing it because just my own personal grievances with how they have handled many characters before and how they're about to handle a character now.
Yeah.
Which one are you talking about? Like Thor: Love and Thunder?
So, from my understanding, I have not seen it, but from the promotional material, it's Jane Foster essentially becomes the next Thor, gains Thor's abilities and things like that. And if that is the case, I could be wrong, but if that is the case, that's a terrible idea. We haven't seen this character for a decade. We have not seen Jane Foster since Thor the Dark World.
Oh, so you haven't read the Jason Aaron run where this all happened in the comics first. Then she joins the Avengers. She gets into a romantic relationship with the Falcon. you know,
Once it-
and it like goes through all this stuff. Like this is like years and years of stuff that it's built.
But
my
you
problem is
shouldn't
the
have
MCU.
to.
And I
You
hate
shouldn't have
Thor,
to
by the
keep-
way. Just you know, like Marvel Comics Thor. I like the movie one, but I don't like the character. So I am
Yeah.
not going to claim to be an expert on this guy because
Yeah.
I think he's an ass clown. So
Yeah.
I'm not debating you there, but I am saying that when it comes to the MCU, if we're going to separate so hard from the comics, which I'm perfectly fine with, and mutilate some of my favorite stories in the process,
X-Men.
if we're going to separate so far, can we at least have a decent character? Give it to the Warriors 3. You know what I mean?
Well,
Oh, that
Beta
would have
Ray
been so
Bill
much
in.
better.
Yeah,
Yes,
throw Beta Ray Bill
thank
in.
you. Thank
That
you.
would have been fucking awesome.
Yeah.
That's all we
That would have
want.
been cool. But I did want to say I walked in with a little trepidatiousness for Thor: Love and Thunder, especially what you brought up, Mike, about or what was it, Spencer, about the Jane Foster thing. However, it works. They made it work. I don't really want to say anything about the film because I think you should just see it and judge for yourself. And it's not what you expect. They actually. It works very well into the story. They kind of bring Thor back to where he's supposed to be. And that's what I liked about that movie is that
There is character growth for sure.
Yeah.
That is in all characters, like they grow and it's a good story to watch them. You know, but is it the best one? No. Is it the worst one? No.
No.
All right,
And
all right.
I'll tell you guys, for my money, I still like Thor 2 Dark World because that is a Star Trek movie.
Oh, I like that movie. I'm not.
Yeah,
I
it
have
definitely
nothing
is a
bad
Star
to say
Trek
about it.
movie.
Is it-
you know,
it-
there's ships,
it
there's
totally
some sort
is.
of anomaly they have to fight.
Is
Yeah.
it a little weaker? Yes, but I thought it was really good. I don't know why most of the Marvel community really kind of like,
Why don't they go
poo-poos
back
that
to the
movie.
first Thor movie where it's like, yeah, this is so cookie cutter.
I want some grit back in the MCU a little bit because we're getting a little farther from that, and I really enjoy the
A little
I enjoy.
farther.
Well, yeah, obviously, but I enjoy like Infinity War when it's a
Yeah.
tragedy. The Avengers
stakes.
lose.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The Avengers lose, and it's something I thought was a good idea was 5 years go by, the world is different now. That was great, and then I saw Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, and I really liked it for what it was.
Oh yeah, I enjoyed that movie.
A lot of people don't like it.
I
I
didn't see
think
it.
it
I
may
haven't
have
seen it.
scared him.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. It's a Sam Raimi film through and
Yeah.
through.
Yeah.
No doubt about that. I
I
love
enjoyed
that.
it. I think it was one of the better ones that have come out in a while, and including like some of the series. I was not a huge fan of how they ended WandaVision. So
No,
thought
I was
they
so.
left so much on the table.
That was
I'm like,
awful.
are we just not going to talk about Vision? I mean,
Right.
Oh, I
you
was
know,
so
and
upset
I'm only
because
talking about
yeah.
WandaVision, not talking about the movie because it sounds like Michael hasn't seen it yet. So
I like what they've been doing with the Marvel movies. I do understand the criticism that there might be too much humor. Like, for example, don't get me wrong, I'm really enjoying it so far. There's only been 2 episodes. Is the She-Hulk Attorney at Law?
I haven't
I
watched
adore
that.
Oh my god,
So
I
good.
love that show.
so good.
And it's just like the John Byrne comic from the 80s. You know, she breaks the fourth wall all the time. And I almost said Eric Bana. Mark Ruffalo is in it. And he's like trying to mentor her. And it's just so well done. And it's only half an hour. So it's the lighthearted side of the Marvel universe.
They're
Moon
going
Knight
very
was
Ally
kinda-
McBeal with it, right?
Ally McBeal with superpowers. I guess. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
not quite as quirky as Ally McBeal. That show.
No cutaways, I guess, but
Yeah, I mean, she's not seeing like the dancing computer generated baby or anything, but I still love Ally McBeal.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. I have plenty of grievances. I've gone on this rant before of how they treated Hulk and Hulk's stories in the MCU and how angry I am at the writers for how they've treated it. And I do want to see She-Hulk. I kind of want to see how things go, but there's a few things that I just absolutely cannot stand, and it upsets me because I have a sneaking suspicion that it's not like the individual writers saying, hey, wouldn't this be better? It's the studio saying, this is the direction we want to go. You can scrap X, Y, and Z story, which angers me because they mutilated Planet Hulk, which is one of Hulk's best stories, which leads into World War Hulk. I want Savage. I want grit. I do not want, him to be the comic relief for every single Avengers movie.
Right.
he's like Black Bolt at this point. He's the stepping stone to get where you need to go. You beat Black Bolt in the Marvel universe, and then you're like, wow, this guy's powerful. Now it's like, you beat the Hulk, and you're there.
I saw
wanted to see Black Bolt.
I'm sorry. I was watching I watched a bunch of videos on YouTube about this kind of shit, and one of the guys was complaining, just as you are, Spencer, about how the MCU, it totally has handled the Hulk in a shitty way. And he said in the first Avengers, everybody's kind of afraid of him because he's super powerful and he's like a wild card. They don't really know what he can do, what he's going to do, how much control he has, how much he doesn't have. And then he said after that, even in Avengers 2, he was like that to some degree. And then after that, they sort of lost that. He just became like Shrek. He's not like.
Yeah, I was mad about that.
Yeah, and it does go a little against my, even though I know they're separate entities, it goes against my love of the Bill Bixby, Lou Ferrigno show, which is really tragedy through the whole thing from the first episode to the last, and it's like they kind of did take that away. I didn't know how they were going to do him. Like the Hulk, he's supposed to be on the run all the time. He's supposed to be hiding from the authorities, but I suppose when you've got powerful heroes like the Avengers, at some point they're going to capture him. And
in the comics, he didn't necessarily run all the time either, right?
He's always hoping his next leap will be the leap.
Yeah, it got to a point where he's.
Ziggy says.
Do you know they're rebooting that, by the way?
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Oh dear Lord, let it rest in peace.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Spencer. Go ahead, Spencer. Go ahead.
I've gone on this rant before with how they treated Hulk and how much better the Incredible Hulk is as a movie from 2008, which angers me to hell. No pun intended. Angers me to hell because people say that that's one of the weakest MCU movies, and I think that's because most of the MCU fandom is really, really lame, in my opinion. I have no problem saying that out loud because fandoms ruin everything. Don't get me wrong. I love Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth. They're awesome. I'm all for what they've done with them. I just feel like that Hulk was the one who had to take the fall when the Incredible Hulk is one of the best and scariest Hulk movies we will ever see, and I wanted them to keep that. They kind of kept that in the first Avengers, where they're extremely nervous about being around Banner, and I get that by Avengers 2 it was a little bit more relaxed. They had a level of control, and he had a level of control. I'm annoyed that they had to have the whole Hulk gets mind controlled again, and then by the third movie we don't even get the Hulk, and we get this. Thor Ragnarok's okay because they give you this like two-person, they have to fight for control and they have to, negotiate with each other, which I loved. And then they just kind of like let that die in Endgame.
I think you're right because they got away from its Jekyll and Hyde roots.
Which is the best, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know. With the Hulk, like he's another guy that to me, it's like you can have good stories with the Hulk, but I don't know that the Hulk is going to be the most compelling character in a team setting anyway.
Well, yeah, right. A lot of teams have like the muscle guy that they sort of ignore. I mean, they need him, but
I'm an X-Men guy, and I would rather like hear a story about like Colossus any day than the Hulk and all that. I
can see where you're coming from. I think they need to lean into the whole mental health aspect for Hulk, especially in this day and age when we kind of are much more aware of mental health these days, and good and bad.
And he said in the Avengers that he tried to kill himself.
Yeah, I put a bullet in my head and the other guy spits it out. That to me is one of the most fantastic lines that I almost called it's Mark Ruffalo, not Mark Hamill. Mark Ruffalo delivers. I love that.
Yeah. They do go into that a little bit in that first that pilot episode of She-Hulk.
Yeah.
So it's funny because there's some backlash about that too, and how they said that people were saying that this was like male bashing or something like after her response, and I'm like, it just sounds like a relevant response from someone who has a different perspective than just like a regular cisgendered male that's watching it. Why is that not acceptable? But
what did she say that people were?
She said that she's way better at controlling her anger because she has to all the time because she's always either catcalled in the street or something.
Yeah, I saw that.
When she's going into it, and it's like I'm like, here I am sitting over here.
That was such a feminist rant, though.
Well,
like the stuff that she said,
it's a different
mansplaining, and people catcalling me. And I have so much rage. It's like, I'll give you a break.
Well, it wasn't as like simplified as that, because he's dumbing everything down to her because he's taking his personal experience and putting it into her, and it's like that's not the case.
Yeah,
and he just was not getting it, you know.
Well, the fact that she controls herself so easily and so quickly in the episode. I mean, I haven't seen the whole. I haven't watched it, but I've seen lots of videos about it. And I've watched. There's like 100 clips out, so I've practically seen the whole episode. But I got the sense that she just starts controlling it right away. Like she's fine right away.
That's very true. Yeah.
To that degree, there's also the point of it's very the part of what, like I keep saying with mental health, is also just anger issues in general is a big part of the Hulk. So when you have somebody like Bruce Banner who has been struggling with his anger issues and then gets Hulkified in a very intense way, okay, yeah, he's kind of screwed to some extent. Whereas I haven't seen She-Hulk quite yet, but it sounds like she got less Hulkified and then also at the same time has more history with controlling her outburst. So it's a little different of a situation.
She has more history with control. Like all the shit that Banner himself has gone through. She's had a harder life than him, really?
Hold on. I know that most of the audience has not read the comics, and I hope that they'll bring this into play at some point. In the comics, the way they depict it is that, yes, Bruce Banner's angry, and when he gets irradiated by the gamma radiation, that triggers a mutation in him. So when he gets angry, he gets fucking super angry, super strong, super green, and, smashes everything. But they established over the 40 years that the character's been around that the gamma radiation affected other characters differently. Mm-hmm. So Jennifer Walters, when she got it in the comics, I think at first she was kind of savage, but because that was the comic, Savage She-Hulk, but then it made her glamorous. It takes like your best help me here, Justin. It takes like your best features, not features, but the best things about you. Not the best things, but it magnifies things about your personality.
Did you guys read the Immortal Hulk at all?
No.
I have a vague connection with that one.
Because like the Rick Jones Hulk was different.
There's more with that, with like the Absorbing Man and the Sasquatch from
Alpha Flight.
Alpha Flight, like Carl Lankowski and all that. Like when they get into this, it's like they're going exactly where you're speculating on how it enhances those specific things.
Yeah, I'm all for that, and I'm all for and I don't love when the fans over focus on the semi feministy political stuff, because people did that with the Batman too. There's this one moment where Catwoman mentions once that she's like, we're gonna take down these rich white assholes, which at the end of the day is exactly what these people are. So she wasn't being outrageous with that statement, and then they never address it again. So to me, it didn't seem like the filmmakers wanted to focus on that. It was just a line that got in there.
I will fully cop to when Endgame comes up, and then they have the whole view of all the female characters after like Peter Parker just gets out of the way. I literally said in the theater, really? Because I'm like, come on, guys. I'm like,
it's so much better in Infinity War when you actually have a logistical reason of why these characters are there, and then there's this
the
cool
Dora
connection.
Milaje? Exactly.
And then they're fighting with Nat, which is awesome, and then they see Scarlet Witch have some superpowers, and what's her face, Okoye, is like, why was she up there all this time?
Exactly.
Awesome. I'm all for it. I'm all for you can have these like uplifting moments for female characters who, yes, at the end of the day, they are a minority group in the soldier type fighting combat type setting. You can have those moments. It's really lame when you take every single female character on the battlefield and put them together.
I know, just hitting us over the head with a message,
Did you guys watch Shang-Chi?
Yeah.
So everybody's seen that?
That was so good.
How come they can't capture the sort of feeling that you got after you left that theater when you saw Shang-Chi? If you guys are anything like me and you're like, holy crap, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Because I felt that way. And I was just like, this is a good movie with good characters that I care about. And I want to see what happens to him next.
Right.
I don't feel that from like some of these other ones.
Yeah, I found Captain Marvel to be one of the worst characters they've ever written.
Don't even get me started.
I didn't like the actress choice. And I told people the difference between her and Wonder Woman is Wonder Woman uses her powers to help people, and Captain Marvel uses her powers to blow up jukeboxes. I'm not wrong.
Yeah. Wonder Woman's a much better like female empowerment character in general.
I think they just picked the wrong actress and the wrong writers, because the Carol Danvers that I love is a super spy, badass character that Wolverine respects, and doesn't even need to have powers to be the biggest badass on the team. And that's Carol Danvers. She's not some snarky, wisecracking Top Gun, caricature. And I'm just like, I don't like this.
Well, on that same note, I have to say I wasn't going to watch it, Ms. Marvel, because I figured, I'm not the target demographic. I'm not going to get it. It's aimed at teenage girls. But I watched it, and I freaking loved it, especially by the end. And it was more than just being about a girl. It was more than being about female empowerment. That was a small aspect to it, which I don't even think they really harped on that at all. It just, she got powers, and it was her story. And they were able to explore Indian mythology, like Indians. And
talking about that, was it the Great Separation?
When Pakistan, they had that civil war.
Oh, wow, they addressed that. That's
it's a huge part of the story. And how it affected people's lives. And it was great because it was stuff I never knew about that happened in history. And I thought, much like the way Moon Knight kind of delved into Egyptian mythology, this delved into Indian mythology. And I thought, great, it was a fresh source, a fresh font of cool stuff that you can draw from and make cool stories. And I really, really liked it.
That sounds really good. Ms. Marvel got a little bit more popular because of the Avengers video game.
Yes.
She was one of the main characters that you could play as. And I don't have a clear grasp on her powers in the game. She's had basically Mr. Fantastic powers. So there's that. But she was a cool character, and she was really, really fun. We got to see Hulk with a beard. That was also really fun.
Let's say low-grade Green Lantern is her power set in this one. So it's like she makes a lot of platforms to jump onto. And instead of her stretching, like she'll elongate her arms with like the constructs.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good. I love that.
It was handled really well.
Yeah.
They did a good job. And for a lot of people not really being so familiar with the character, they made her endearing. They made you care about her family. The humor was there, but the humor was all natural. Nothing was forced.
Right.
There was no force where they're like, we're going to make you care about a Muslim character. It's like, no, you just care about them because they're good people.
Right.
That's just how it was. And it was a really well done show.
Yeah, there was an episode of one of the oh my god, I cannot remember her name for the life of me. The Doctor Who, the 13th Doctor. Yeah, Jodie Whittaker. Yeah. One of her episodes had to do with that whole separation of Pakistan and India, and how many people died in that situation. And they have a whole little story about it in one of the episodes, and I loved the episode. I thought that was great. So I am enjoying, these places being explored a bit more, especially like the Egyptian mythology, because there's nobody capitalizing on that in the comics industry that I know of.
Yeah. I have to say, with Moon Knight, I couldn't really remember the comic all that well. I know I read a lot of them when I was a kid, but I forgot about the whole split personality thing, and I just thought it was a great fresh take on this character that's been around for a while, and I'm hoping to see him more in the MCU.
I really do hope they keep Oscar Isaac. I have seen some things with Moon Knight, and he seems to me a character who has like really, really good comedic moments that aren't as asshole Deadpool type as like genuinely he's just clever. So there's that.
Right.
I like his character from some of the stuff I have seen, and I thought Moon Knight as a show was just done spectacular.
Mike, did you watch that?
No, I haven't seen. And the only Marvel show that I watched was WandaVision.
Oh,
wow! So you didn't watch Loki?
I haven't seen Loki. I haven't seen.
Wow.
I just didn't finish Loki.
I don't know why it just didn't grab me. Like, even though I had a certain amount of loyalty to Marvel in general. Just like, well, whatever movie they come out with, I'll go see it. I don't know. Once they shifted to TV series, I was kind of like, okay. I don't know if I really want to. I tried to watch Hawkeye. I couldn't get past the second episode.
I enjoyed that. I liked Hawkeye.
I've lost total faith in the MCU. In fact, I canceled my Disney Plus account 2 days ago.
Oh no.
What Disney's doing to Star Wars and to Marvel, in my opinion, is it's a slow flush down the toilet.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
you canceled it after watching Obi-Wan.
No, I didn't even watch Obi-Wan.
Oh,
wow. I've seen, bits and pieces of it. I just couldn't. I just had no optimism that it was going to be any good, so I just didn't bother. Like Boba Fett, what the fuck was like?
It was so good.
I liked Mandalorian.
Was it?
Yeah,
but it wasn't Boba Fett.
I'm glad somebody liked Boba Fett.
It was. I mean, The Mandalorian came first, and then the next show was actually about Boba Fett, and these shows. Well, not the Obi-Wan one, but Mandalorian and Boba Fett take place immediately after the events of Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, it just didn't. He doesn't seem like the same character. I don't know.
He's not.
He doesn't. He has 5 lines in the trilogy. First of all, second of all, I agree that Disney is really ruining things overall. And here's my little conspiracy theory that I have kind of made up on my own: is they have these high tier, high profile writers that they bring in that try to appeal to every audience and end up screwing the stories over in the process. And this has happened a couple of times now with all the major movies, like Star Wars. As a franchise, the main 9 movies are not that well written. Go through them. They're very, very basic, very, very minimal character development, any one of them. But we like them because of the mythology and the world building. And so it's the same thing with Marvel. But what
You're
they do
saying
is
all 9 of the Star Wars movies have bad character development?
I haven't seen
from the get-go?
The prequels. I know
from 1977?
I've seen
But
the
you're a
first
Gen
3.
Zer and you haven't seen the prequels?
No.
That shocks me.
I refused to show them to him when he was little because they suck.
Okay.
But my point is, of the conspiracy theory, is where they have these little side stuff. They have Boba Fett, they have Obi-Wan, they have Moon Knight, they have not really WandaVision, but they have like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and then they have.
I watched that.
Yeah,
they have
good.
these other writers, these non-high profile writers who are actually catering to the story and actually care about the characters in a more than appealing to the audience sort of way. So we get these fantastic side pieces of media like Moon Knight, like Obi-Wan, that the fans just adore, but they're not the main attraction of these franchises. So then we get to the main attraction of the franchises and they're starting to lose popularity because now the writers are all, caring about who's watching the film instead of just making good characters like they were doing in the beginning of the MCU.
Well, I'll tell you,
like the Black Widow movie. That's a good example of what you're talking about, because the Black Widow movie.
I didn't mind it.
I liked it. I thought that was good,
but it wasn't as good as some of the side stuff, like Falcon Winter Soldier. I think that's way more better written and better done than the Black Widow movie.
I would agree with you there, but I didn't mind it.
Like taste aside and all that, I just think it was done better than that movie.
I think they're creating content that's content. It's entertaining, and it's like if you get titillated by seeing characters you like do stuff, which I do in a lot of cases with a lot of movies and a lot of franchises. I don't care what they do as long as I can watch them.
That's totally fair.
I feel like they're still grinding it out to feed the beast, to feed the masses, and to keep the MCU moving, the empire moving. But
we got 3 Hobbit movies.
Yeah.
That didn't make any sense at all. They could have numbed that down.
I still own them. Yeah.
All right.
Quality.
Let me explain my point of view on this whole thing in terms of Star Wars. So, of course, the original trilogy, grew up with that. 7 years old, 1977. Watched them all. Then the prequels came out. I was so excited, and they sucked so hard it made me not like Star Wars for the longest time.
Yeah.
Then I can't remember. I guess the sequel trilogy, the last 3 movies came out. They were all right. They kind of had the feel, obviously J.J. Abrams, liked it. I don't remember any of them because they weren't that good.
But I've heard how bad they are. They're not good. So
when I watched The Mandalorian, now Jon Favreau, who him as Happy Hogan, and he's been in tons of shit. He's directed a ton of shit. He created, executive produced The Mandalorian, wrote most of the episodes, and that made me like Star Wars again because that gave me the same feeling
Yes.
that I got in the theater when I saw the original Star Wars and
Me too.
Empire. Yeah.
Yep.
He did such a fucking good job with that. And he kind of carried that over into the Boba Fett show, the Book of Boba Fett, which it's different. It's a different take. It's a different character, obviously, than the Mandalorian. But Mandalorian does show up in it towards the end.
Yeah.
And at one point, you're like, well, why is this the Boba Fett show or the Mandalorian show? Because there's a lot of Mandalorian in it. But they wrapped up some loose ends from his first season. So I think, in terms of your point, Spencer, where they're just churning out shit just to give it to the masses. It's not in every case. Like, case in point is The Mandalorian. Favreau loves Star Wars the way that we love Star Wars, the aspects of Star Wars that we love, and he was able to make it entertaining to people who don't know anything about Star Wars.
Right.
Yeah, that's my thought also is they need to stop hiring high profile people who really don't know the stories or aren't fans of the stories. Jon Favreau caring about Star Wars is a part of the reason he makes such a good show, not to mention just he's good at it in general. That's why I think Moon Knight is really good and stuff like that, because you have people in it who gave a shit about what they were writing versus just trying to create something that would make money.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why for me the Netflix series worked. Daredevil was amazing. The Punisher was fucking awesome.
So
but
good.
how faithful were they to the comics, though? And it's like they had working with like Frank Miller or dipping into the Mark Waid stuff. Well, mostly Frank Miller for that, but anything.
And it's going to be
That's
a
my
different
jam
medium.
right there.
Translating comics to the screen. A long time ago, I kind of said, you know what? I think it was like around when the first X-Men came out. I have to. We as audience members sort of have to let go of that. You can have the knowledge of what happened in the comics, but if it doesn't play out that way, it's okay. They can. They're at full artistic creativity to take it in directions that the comic didn't go in. And also, think about this: superhero costumes don't translate well to the screen.
They're very, very lame, very, very boring.
They could be
I read
stupid.
Maximum Carnage recently. Maximum Carnage, I love Carnage, and I am so disappointed in Venom 2, yet I'm also ecstatic by it. And that's really, really
That movie
gritty.
cracked me up.
I will
like
go
a laugh riot.
I will go into that movie a little bit with the mindset of Carnage is terrifying, and they made him as scary as they could be with a PG-13 rating. This is my favorite rant. I love Carnage. Love Carnage.
I saw that movie too. I was just constantly cracking up because of the humor.
It was really good, and I think Tom Hardy's a great lead for it. I like 90s Venom. I like that Venom's a real fucking dweeb.
Yeah.
It works. He doesn't come in and
the relationship they have back and forth is hilarious. And I mean, I was laughing the whole time. And I've read all those books. I still have Lethal Protector. I've got Maximum Carnage. Like all that stuff.
Oh, Maximum Carnage.
I'm not a Spider-Man fan, but I'm a Venom fan.
Yeah.
So I dug it. And I don't need a Spider-Man movie to be anything other than just like mindless entertainment, because I'm like, well, you're not going to make me cry like at the end of like Spider-Man 2 or anything. But like it is what it is. It's okay.
I disagree on the point of Spider-Man movies can be mindless entertainment, because they did that. The first two Tom Holland movies are really only enjoyable when the villain's on the screen. So,
well, that's just for me, because he's not a compelling character that I follow. Like
he is for a lot of people.
with like Star Wars. I'm a Star Trek fan. So anything that happens in the Star Wars universe, okay, sure. I can honestly tell you, it's like, I think that so much of like the first movie's bad. The last half of that, or not first, but like the first prequel, so much of the first prequel is awful. But then like there's really good music in it. Like there's some pretty cool fights that you've probably already seen on YouTube. Ray Park's in it. That's kind of cool. The second half of the second prequel is okay. The third movie's all right. But I'm a Star Trek fan. So it's like, what's the worst one that we have? The fifth one?
It's like, fair point.
Yeah. So it's like, I'm like, this is great. Add it on,
Yeah, I will. When it comes to the Spider-Man movies specifically, like obviously the Tobey Maguire movies are Sam Raimi, so I think they're all fantastic. But the Tom Holland movies really didn't get me until No Way Home, and not just because of nostalgia and seeing that. I'm talking about Tom Holland's performance and Zendaya's performance was really good. It was particularly good, even when the whole Aunt May sequence happens. That
Yeah.
was like I had a bit of a tear in my eye. I'm like, this is really really rough, and it was a bit of a reality check for this character,
It's like
more than like
Spider-Man Steel Magnolias.
yeah, a little bit. So to me, that was a really, really good moment, and it was well done, and it was well scripted, and that's a movie where Disney did things right, and then they
Well, yes, but that's partly because they were working with Sony. Whoever they got to write that movie and direct that movie, that collaboration or whatever, I feel like that's the only recent Spider-Man movie that I like.
I would give the Andrew Garfield ones a try because I watched both of them and I really enjoyed them.
When I say recent, I'm sorry, I mean Tom Holland. I liked
Yeah,
Tom Holland's Spider-Man in Civil War, and
Yeah.
then after that, kind of until No Way Home.
Huh.
And No Way Home was fucking awesome.
Yep.
Because you know why? They finally forced him to grow up. They
That is
forced
true. Yeah.
They forced him to go through some shit and see how hard everything is and get his ass handed to him and realize that there's consequences and just shred his world. And that's, Peter Parker has to suffer to become who he is behind the mask. And finally they did that with Tom Holland, and thank God they made him grow up, and they stopped trying to make his movies into Ferris Bueller's sequels.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just said this to Justin is the first two Spider-Man movies with Tom Holland are only really the most entertaining when the villain is on the screen. In my opinion,
Yeah.
I love the Vulture. I thought Michael Keaton's Vulture was fantastic. I thought
He's scary.
Yeah.
He was
Mysterio
scary.
Mysterio was done very, very well. I thought that was super cool. And I thought Spider-Man Far From Home did have a little bit of character development, a little bit near the end, and I thought that was good, but the rest of the movie was kind of whatever. No Way Home really brought out Holland's best performance, in my opinion.
And Mike, you brought up a good point that I hadn't actually thought of before. I hadn't considered it, but I was just thinking back on some of the Spider-Man comics in the 70s, and he doesn't know where his next rent payment is going to come from, and he's struggling through that whole thing. And they kind of did that with Tobey Maguire in the first and second one.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's an aspect of the character that they really haven't capitalized on, which made him so interesting in the comics, was that he, like you said, he has to suffer to maintain being Spider-Man.
He's
Yeah.
supposed to be an everyman, and
Right.
he's not if he's Stark funded.
Right. Exactly.
I
That's a good
suppose.
point.
I suppose. I also thought that there was some good lessons. It's just for me the performance was a little lackluster. I'm going back to Maximum Carnage. There's a whole point where part of the story is Peter Parker like having to grapple with the fact that he may actually have to kill one of these villains, and I was really enjoying that because he's like going back and forth, like maybe this is the best course of action, but no, I'm better than that. We're going to be better than that. And I loved watching them go back and forth. He had, Morbius and Venom and Deathlock all saying, no, we just have to put him down like a dog. And then you had Captain America on the other side saying, no, we're better than that. We're going to save New York. We're going to put these people in jail where they belong. And that's the stuff that really I enjoyed and that we kind of got to see at the end of No Way Home, especially his final fight with Willem Dafoe's Goblin.
Yeah.
Oh, I was losing it. Eyes glued to the screen. I sometimes just rewatch that fight alone for a variety of reasons. And that to me was also a fantastic moment for the character in general. We're going to get to see a completely different Spider-Man going forward.
The thing I love about the ending of that movie and that scene is when Tom Holland's Spider-Man is basically about to kill the Goblin. And Tobey Maguire Spider-Man intervenes and just grabs the glider to stop him, but he doesn't need to say anything. He just grabs it and looks at him.
Yeah.
Until the other Peter it dawns on him like, oh, okay, this is not who Spider-Man is. And they don't need to talk about it. It just he just knows, and then he calms down. I'm like, that was so good.
I love that. A little thing about that fight that I noticed, and I've heard some people talk about, is we forget that the Goblin is superhuman because Spider-Man in the comics has been known to just like bitch slap people and kill them instantly. The Superior Spider-Man had to figure that out. So when he's punching, obviously he's just killed Aunt May, no holds barred, nothing is off the table. When he's throwing right hooks
Yeah.
on Willem Dafoe, and Willem Dafoe is not taking any kind of damage visibly from it. That's a great moment of how tough he really was.
Yeah, the Goblin formula makes him superhuman.
I love that.
And it was just nice seeing Willem Dafoe and Alfred Molina come back and reprise their roles, and they didn't look all that old. It was so good.
Yeah.
That scene
They
on the
really
bridge,
de-aged him, yeah.
the first scene on the bridge where Doc Ock shows up. I mean, when they're on the Peter goes to the car to talk to the woman, and then Doc Ock comes up, and it's like the car's being thrown everywhere, and he's in the spider suit with the legs coming out the back, and see this helicopter shot of the two of them going at each other, and they both have arms coming out of their backs, and it was
a good geek moment, right?
Oh man, I was geeking out so hard, geeking out. Wow.
Yeah. Also for me, a big point is between movies, obviously never get to see Doc Ock and Willem Dafoe interact. So watching them interact is just awesome in and of itself. I love when these side characters and these villains actually have to talk to each other a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, because they're mostly narcissists that, they want to be the star, the center of attention. They feel that, they're the ones who are owed everything. Everyone tries to be Dr. Doom or recreate Dr. Doom. There's only one Dr. Doom.
Right.
Yeah.
It's you have these guys that are like, oh, I'm a genius. I'm a genius. I'm the only genius. And it's like, oh, no wonder they never work together.
Right.
Look at that Sinister Six movie.
I'm just saying, when you see Willem Dafoe's face when finally the spider sense, we finally got that in No Way Home.
Yes.
It was finally done right, and it was fantastically terrifying. And then you just hear Norman's on sabbatical, honey, and I'm just like, ugh, just like shivering down in my own skin when he says that.
Yeah, and that reminds me. I mean, I've always been a fan of crossovers of any kind. That's partially why I like a lot of the TV shows that they've done. But I'm going to say, I've said this to you before, Spence. I'm going to say this so Mike can hear it, because I know Justin knows it. But I'm going to say two words about She-Hulk: Blonsky and Daredevil. And that's all I'm going to say.
I'm in. I'm in. I might actually just sit down and watch the first episode tonight.
I'm sorry, what's Blonsky?
The Abomination.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You saw Shang-Chi, right? Everyone here saw Shang-Chi.
Yeah.
We established. I was out of my chair when dudes, and I was upset because it was 2 seconds. I was hoping Shang-Chi would fight him when I saw the clip from the trailer, but I was out of my chair when Wong and Emil were going toe to toe. I'm like, yes, he looks like the comics too. This is great.
Wong is so great. I loved him in What We Do in the Shadows as the Necromancer. Have you ever seen that show?
Oh yeah. I forgot about it.
I've never seen the show.
Every
I've
time
only
he
seen the
shows
movie.
up, it's worth it. And the last episode of the first season, if you're a fan of 90s Marvel movies, you should watch it.
Okay. Yeah.
All I'm gonna say.
All right. What, you mean like the Fantastic Four or Captain America?
No, I mean the one that started it all. So
and once again, also with the Shang-Chi moment is specifically, I love that we get these little tidbits. Like in Avengers, it's like, do you want to be the one to guard Blonsky's cell? You know what I mean? It's these little moments of like, we get to acknowledge that these previous movies happened and they had consequences and these characters aren't gone. I'm still, to this day, praying that the leader will show up in She-Hulk.
And be the same actor from The Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was done so incredibly well, and it's a blink and you'll miss it moment. But all the comic fans are out of their fucking chair.
Right.
Well, he showed up in the Watchmen series. What's his name? Gray Nelson or something.
I forget.
I mean, he's still active doing stuff, so there's no reason he couldn't.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not going to get Nick Nolte, but
something. I think it was something Spencer said earlier that I think is very true to some extent. Is I'm so glad I don't have these people's jobs of like trying to make content that lines up to some degree with the diehard comics readers and also presents the stuff to people who are not really superhero. They maybe they like watching movies, but they're not really into the comics characters or the history or whatever, and the different generations, and just trying to cover all that ground and trying to make everybody happy, it's got to be almost impossible.
Yeah, yeah. And my opinion is what they should be doing is focusing on making a good adaptation of the stories. And yes, make something new, but just build a good comic book-esque story. And
Right.
after that, it will follow. Because the fans have proven time and time again, we like a good movie more than a good Marvel movie.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
And
that's fair.
it's funny, like I consider my wife the average moviegoer because she doesn't retain stuff the way that you guys and I do. And she loved Shang-Chi, and she couldn't get through Eternals. She just got up and walked out of the room. She's like, yeah, I'm going to bed.
I totally understand that because here's a whole bunch of characters. Again, like going back to my Shang-Chi conversation, there's nothing endearing about Circe or Icarus or Sprite or the other 3, 4, 5 characters. The only one I liked was Gilgamesh. And I'm like, the rest of them are terrible. The main character is terrible.
What I took away from that was that these guys are so long-lived, we can't really relate to them. That's why they all seem like they're aloof and above everything, because they've been living here for thousands of years, you know?
Yet they're still having junior high relationship issues.
That's true.
Well,
You know,
I mean, that's kind of how gods are in pretty much every mythology story. I haven't,
Right, that
I
may be
haven't seen
fair.
Eternals, but like there's a
Good
whole
point.
point in Greek mythology that they fight like siblings because they are all siblings. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
I think
liked-
it's a point.
I like parts of that movie again, but probably way fewer parts. And I think that like that is the weakest that they've done. And it seems like they really sunk a lot into the effects of that film. But I mean, just like in terms of like story and everything else, I'm just like, it's just really not there.
Right. So,
I have not watched trailers
well, yeah, me neither.
of anything, so I haven't seen. I don't know, but I was thinking. You got me thinking because
For
every time
Eternals or
you think about Eternals and like gods and stuff, I think about the Shazam movie that came out, which was fantastic,
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
It's
And
fun.
the Black Adam movie makes me a little nervous because as much as I love Dwayne the Rock Johnson, I don't know if he's the right person for the job for Black Adam.
I think he'll pull. At least he's got the
I
look.
think so.
He looks like
He's got to sound the
Yeah.
part for me. If you don't sound the part, like that disappointed me about the Mortal Kombat movie was that Raiden was a little too comical and not nearly as godlike as he has been in the games. So I think that if you don't sound the part, you're really gonna struggle, even if you look the part.
yeah.
are you talking about the 1996 Mortal Kombat or are you
No,
talking about
the
the
new
new
one.
Mortal Kombat?
The new one, Raiden is he's a lot more like, funny and like, he's got some more quips versus just having this imposing presence of.
That's
I
like
will
a
defend
whole other
Earth.
podcast to unpack of what you liked about that movie because I am so curious right now on what you liked and didn't like.
I love the movie. Don't get me wrong. But
It has some parts to it again. It's like I
Just
don't
some
know if
small
I could like go back to like Cole and all that and like I'm like, man, there's so much to unpack there. But it has some really awesome action sequences and going back to like the Eternals, there's some really good action sequences.
Yeah.
But the characters are dumb. They're just not like it's like, oh, you've got Angelina Jolie back and doing this. It's like, cool. She's great to watch. I love it. But then what? Like after she swings that sword and cuts the monster in half, then what? There's nothing. It's like, okay, cool. What does this guy do? Oh, you run fast? Well, I've seen that with the Flash, and they did it better. So what? And like, oh, this guy shoots from his eyes. I'm like, yeah, but so does Cyclops. And I'm like, Cyclops bounced something off a car in the last Dark Phoenix movie. That was cool. This was not. It's like, show me something different and new in a new way. And I really feel like they missed out on that because they just kind of regurgitated these characters that were like Kirby adjacent. And it's like, well, if you guys are going for like a fourth world vibe, there's no dark side. There's no big heavy. And they're like, oh, the Eternals. Nobody cares. It's like, that's like when you tried to sacrifice the X-Men for the Inhumans. Nobody wanted that. Like, oh, this guy's Trident. He's a fish man that lives under. No, don't care. Give me Wolverine.
Yeah, the thing with the Inhumans is they did Black Bolt, which was pretty good. I always loved Black Bolt. He's one of my favorite Inhuman characters.
And that was Anson Mount playing him in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought he was done well in Doctor Strange. I thought he was done very, very well, and I was slightly disappointed with how Doctor Strange turned out, but at the same time, it's also that much scarier.
It makes sense. Like, and again, it's like I said, if you want to prove somebody is powerful, you have them beat on Black Bolt. You know,
Yeah,
and I mean to another lesser sense, you have them beat on Namor. You know, and now we'll
Namor
get
is so
to that.
fucking powerful. My God.
Yeah.
I want to see him in the MCU, but I also want to see him done right.
Yeah, with the
is that-
green Speedo and the wings on his ankles.
Okay, like I said, done right.
But he's
Cool,
such
man.
an
You know,
pompous
that can fly.
asshole, and he's so powerful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's great, right?
You know what would be really cool if they went and did an Invaders
much.
movie and had it take place in the 1940s and it was Captain America, the Submariner, and the original Human Torch. That would be fucking awesome.
and Toro.
Wow.
And Toro, that's right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be
That would be cool, man. I would love that.
These comic book movies are really only as good as their villains, in my opinion, which is
Always, yeah.
which is where some of these movies fall flat and are also really good. It's the same thing with DC as well. I mean, reason we love The Dark Knight is because 50% of the movie is a Bruce Wayne none of us really give a shit about, but a villain that we're all hyper invested in.
right.
And you're talking about the guy with the sky hook, right? That he has to extradite. Yeah, everybody forgets that guy. So,
Yep.
Oh, that guy. Who's that
yeah,
guy?
that guy. You know, the guy in the TV.
Well, yeah. I mean,
I've seen squealers before.
we were also interested in that movie in Harvey Dent. Harvey Dent's character was more interesting than Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne's like, I don't know if she loves me anymore. Like, shut up, Bruce. You know.
Your Honor, I'm not done yet.
Christian Bale's Batman was so wasted because he's a fine actor. He just got locked in with a script that gave him a really bland and boring character.
Just remember how much we loved it at the time, though. You know?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, that was the grittiest thing we had. I remember seeing The Dark Knight Rises in the theater.
Yeah.
When I go back and watch the Nolan movies, not so much the first one, Batman Begins, which I loved, but
I really
like
liked it.
in the subsequent movies, if I watch like a clip or a scene from it, the voice itself is not what bothers me, but he sounds like his face is being squeezed by the mask.
Yeah.
Like somebody's holding his nose or something.
So that's what that's
I'm
like.
Are you okay?
That's
Yeah,
really
like, take
funny.
the mask off, dude. You're hurting yourself.
There's
Something
some
I
good
like.
actors in that too, like Gary Oldman, and
Yeah.
like he
Oh, yeah.
really kind of like, and your Lucius Fox with Morgan Freeman, your Michael
Oh.
Caine, and
Yes.
it's like there's a lot of heavy lifting around that movie too. So it's like it's held up by these pillars of these actors and all that, and it's like I don't want to hate it, and I don't hate it, but it's not my favorite thing. But on paper, it should be the best.
Yeah. I mean, Heath Ledger's Joker is completely unparalleled in just his ability to command the scene and chew the
Yeah,
scenery so well.
Yeah.
No question, that's my favorite.
So I just want to say this. So 1989, Mike, you were working at the Showcase Cinema in Woburn at that time, right?
Yes.
Yes, because that year I saw so many movies 5 times each or 3 times each, and I'm not going to go into the litany of them right now. However, Batman with
UHF.
Michael Keaton, I was there on opening day.
Me too.
I think, you were with me, right?
I was working.
Oh, you were working, right?
At least the matinee time, it was working. The line was around the building.
Yep. 'Cause
And like down half the parking lot.
I think Sean Whalen and I were in the line outside,
Yeah.
and we weren't actually too far from the building because you know me, I got there super early.
Right.
So I saw that movie, Batman with Michael Keaton, and Jack Nicholson as the Joker. I saw it 4 more times in the theater. I think partially because you were able to get me into the movies or get passes or whatever. And it took me 5 times watching that movie to realize that I fucking hate that movie.
Wow.
That's funny.
Yeah, me too.
Because when it first came out, you were like, finally, a serious Batman. Don't get me wrong, I love Adam West, but everyone thinks Batman is stupid and campy, and now we've got a serious Batman. And then you watch it over and over again, you're like, oh, this doesn't hold up. He can't even turn his neck, for God's sakes. What are they doing?
Is that,
I've noticed that my opinion's changed on some of these. Like, I like Batman Forever a lot more now than I used to.
I liked
just
Val
really
Kilmer as
appreciating
Batman
him.
in that movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I like him as Bruce Wayne like so much, and I'm like, it's so nuanced what he's doing, and I'm like, I get it. I just get it. And now, like, as an adult, I get it, because as a kid I was like, this is commercialism, this is this. I don't really care for it, what they're going for. And then I'm like, I get it. He's trying to save the day. He's compassionate about Edward, and he's saying, "Oh, mind control. That's not something we're interested in." That's a different take than Batman Returns, where what did he do? You know, it's like, where's the character? Where's the character growth? It's just literally take him out of the movie, and all the events would have played out with Catwoman and Penguin probably, and all the other stuff. Like
even the Penguin had too much screen time.
Yeah, I thought the Penguin was cool. Like but again, it's like that rule of cool, style over substance, and it's like this is cool. Like I like this thing, but I'm caught up in Batmania and all that, and it's like, is it really great? I don't know. You know?
I remember my parents were horrified at Danny DeVito's Penguin, and they were like, because they were used to Burgess Meredith on the TV show, and they were like, that's not the Penguin. That's disgusting.
Wow.
Which is the one where Mr. Freeze is Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Fourth one. Yeah.
Batman and Robin.
Because it's... Which is the one with Michael Keaton's Joker? I get these ones confused all the time.
Wait, what?
First one.
The first one.
The first Batman Michael Keaton was Joker.
Yes. Okay, because I remember that one.
Jack Nicholson was the Joker.
That's what I said. That's what I said, guys. Come on. Jack Nicholson's Joker. I keep saying Michael Keaton because he played the Vulture. But his Joker was awesome for me because in the final fight, I vividly remember this, sitting on the couch and watching this. In the final fight, him and he's like trying to dodge Batman, like, "Hey, come on." Constant comedy, which I'm losing it at. In the final punch, he puts on a pair of glasses. You wouldn't hit a guy with glasses, would you? Boom! Right in the face.
Well, he like throws a fake pair of like shattering teeth and stuff.
Yeah,
and
that to me is a great representation of the Joker. And those Batman movies are what they are. They absolutely butchered some characters. Don't get me wrong, I love Jim Carrey, but they did not do the Riddler right.
Well, he did the Joker as the Riddler. So that's kind of what you were going for there.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's one element in that first.
Two-Face was awful too.
Yeah,
Two-Face was not the right character. That was the same character he did in Natural Born Killers.
And what was wrong with Billy D. Williams? He was Harvey Dent in the first movie. Why not have him play Two-Face in the second one?
Yeah,
but
right.
They continue that in the Batman '89 series, which is I think it's just a 6-issue series that just wrapped up maybe a couple months back. But they go into all of that. And even take it to the point where they bring in the Robin that they had intended, which would have been Marlon Wayans.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so they actually do that. You could check that out. I mean, you can get it on Comixology or pick up probably a trade paperback or something. But that does have the Billy D. Williams Two-Face in it.
Oh, interesting. Oh, that's kind of cool. But there's one scene. I mean, there's many elements of the '89 Batman, and I'm not going to sit here and shit on it for 45 minutes. But there's one scene that always pissed me off because it confused audience members, and I hated it. It's what Jack Nicholson's Joker. Before he's the Joker, he falls into the vat of chemicals, comes out, and his face is white with the red lips, and history is made. But then there's a point in the film where he puts flesh tone makeup on his face. And he's sitting at a desk or something, and he's laughing, of course, and he's sweating, and he's got this handkerchief, and he's wiping his brow, and it's wiping the flesh tone off. And I heard people in the theater going, "Oh, he's putting his makeup on," thinking he was putting the white makeup on, not that he was taking the flesh tone makeup off. And I thought that was a very poor decision on Tim Burton's part to do it that way, because it was confusing people who don't really know anything about the Joker.
Right. They didn't show him with the bleached skin enough prior to that for people to get it. Oh, this is how he looks now.
Right.
And this is him covering it up. Right.
Yeah. Something. I mean, we could talk for hours and hours about Joker. And there's so many good Jokers and so many bad Jokers. I love scary and terrifying Joker. And I mean, I know in the comics when they had Jason Todd, when he showed up, he was like kind of a shit character and everybody really hated him. And then they killed him off. But when they brought him back for the Red Hood storyline, that was really, really dark. The whole Joker kidnapped me for a year and I finally escaped at the end was really, really dark and really sad, and a good reflection of Joker's actions, more than just having him as a character. It was this like, he can actually tear apart the Bat family if he truly wanted to.
He's a sick, twisted bastard.
They did that story in the show Titans.
Did you guys read the Three Jokers book that came out?
Oh my god. What,
like maybe
Justin?
a year and a half ago, The Three Jokers.
No.
I got to get my hands on a copy of that now. I haven't.
What is it?
Okay, so it's a story that goes into a lot of this, and basically, there's three different people who play the Joker. So they're all the same, as in they all kind of do the same stuff. But there's one who's like the criminal mastermind, who would be like your golden age. Then there's one who's the clowny comedian, who would be your silver age, and then there's one who's like your more brutal modern age, right? So the modern age would be the one that shot Barbara Gordon,
Right.
you know, and then like your the comedian one would be the one from the 70s, and the one before that would be the mastermind, who was the one from like the 40s and 50s and such like that. And there's so much that has to go with this. Like they're like trying to confuse Batman and all that, and Batman doesn't know anything about this until like at one point he sits on this god chair in the Darkseid War, and he asks you can ask anything in existence. So he asks, who's the Joker? And then it goes, three people, huh? You know, like that, like something Batman had no idea of. You know, but he gains omnipotence, you know, for a short period of time, and he asks about his greatest foe, and that's what kind of led to this. And it is kind of an Elseworlds story, but it goes so much into what Spence was just talking there about Jason Todd, and how Jason Todd has like this dark, sordid history because he was murdered by the Joker. So it's just, I think it's a really good story. I liked it a lot. There's a great hardcover that has all of the issues of it. I think it was a 3-issue book, and it even has like some of the variant covers in it. But it was Jeff Johns and Jason Fabok was the artist, and I would highly, highly recommend that because I thought it was so good.
Oh, that's cool. That's awesome. So I wanted to mention, because I touched upon it, the Doom Patrol show and the Titans show are fucking awesome. They're rated R horror, superhero shows, and they've done so well. And I wanted to say that the DC TV shows have so much outweighed the DC movies, with maybe the exception of Shazam, because that was really good. And I kind of liked Aquaman to some degree.
I was going to say in Aquaman.
Yeah.
I get it if other people didn't like it, but I really did.
No, the question I have is, and I feel, Justin, you're probably the best suited to answer this because I've only seen headlines about it. What happened to this Batgirl movie, and what the heck is going on with the Flash film?
Okay. So with Batgirl, this was meant specifically to be a movie that was going to be streaming, right? So with that in mind, you had the quality of maybe like a CW crossover movie or something along those lines, right?
Right.
So what DC was saying, and it's not even so much DC as was it Discovery that took over Warner Brothers? They're saying that we're not going to release this because we are only releasing theatrical releases. So that's why they're going to hold on to the Flash, and they're going to release the Flash movie, Flashpoint. So they have no plans other than the Black Adam movie and then whatever else they had. Like, so, I mean, we've been waiting on like a Green Lantern Corps movie forever. Like it's like they put in for the website, they put in for like the copyrights, all this stuff. The scripts are out there, like, and they're just waiting on casting. Dead. Everything's dead right now. They canceled the next Wonder Woman, like all of that kind of stuff. There's supposed to be this huge DC Expo and all that, and it's like, nope, we have new ownership, so we're gonna just go through that. With Ezra Miller, they've sunk so much money into this thing, they can't afford not to release it.
Right.
So
but he went nutty in life or something, didn't he?
Oh, of course. You know, it's one of those things where it's like now he's gonna go to jail or something like that, and we're gonna be thinking, oh, this is the hero that we need. We're gonna get this movie, and it's like they're just not gonna go and replace him, and they should.
Yeah.
You know, I think most people would probably flip their wigs if they put Grant Gustin in there instead from the CW series. Would be like, yes, it's what we want.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't think they can because they have so much of the movie they'd have to reshoot.
Oh.
And it's not like that Army of the Dead movie where they can cut out the helicopter pilot,
Right.
you know, and put Tig Notaro in there, and it's like, you know, that was all right, but you know, I don't think that they can afford to do that with this huge movie.
That was amazing, by the way, that they did that. Spence, you and I talked about that last year.
Yeah, I remember that. That was pretty.
That's a
I
huge
thought that was
deal.
hysterical, though. Her character was fantastic. She's like smoking as she's putting gasoline in the helicopter. Got a big ass cigar in her mouth as she like talking through it as she's just pouring gasoline into this fucking helicopter.
And she's great on Discovery too. I like whenever she talks about these things because she does not care for like pop culture at all. Not worth a damn. Like she'd be on the show and she'd be like, "Why are you guys talking about this?" Like, she doesn't care. She's like, "I don't know. I get up, I do my thing, and then I go home, and I don't think about it ever again." I'm like, wow.
That's funny.
I'm like, she's just so cool.
Mike, did you see Army of the Dead?
Army of the Dead.
The Netflix movie.
It was a Zack Snyder film that went straight to Netflix, and it starred Dave Bautista, and it was basically the zombie apocalypse, except it starts in Las Vegas, and they managed to wall off the city and contain it. But if you think about it, there's shit tons of money in there because of the casinos. So Bautista's tasked with this group to go in and grab a certain amount of cash and stuff. And the plot's a little more complicated than that. But there was an actor in it that I don't know what he did. He insulted somebody or said bad things about women or something. And so rather than reshoot, they literally digitally removed him from the film and replaced him with this actress, Tig Navarro. And you couldn't even tell. Like Spence and I watched it, and I had already known this, but then we did a show about it last year. So I didn't tell him anything until we sat down with PJ Rahal and started talking about it. And then it came out, and Spence, you were blown away, right?
Yeah. Oh my God, my jaw hit the floor. I'm like, wait. She wasn't in any of those scenes, like literally filming it with them. That blew me away. That she was digitally in there.
I think they've never even met.
Yeah, I think she said that. Yeah.
Wow.
It's pretty crazy.
Was she in a lot of scenes?
Can they do that?
She was in a good amount of them.
Yeah.
She had a good amount of screen time.
We're gonna get like a clue from Tron Legacy. I don't know if you guys saw that one, but are we gonna get that with like the Jeff Bridges CGI or something like that?
Young Jeff Bridges.
Someone else's face on Ezra Miller's body.
Well,
that's why we measure Jeff Bridges in young Jeff Bridges and old
Jeff Bridges
is because of Tron Legacy. Like when I watch R.I.P.D. with Ryan Reynolds and old Jeff Bridges, it's old Jeff Bridges.
Right, but then we watch The Fisher King and it's young Jeff Bridges.
It's young Jeff Bridges.
You could do a podcast on that, old Jeff, new Jeff. You know,
there you go.
Like today we're doing The Seventh Son and King Kong.
Which reminds me, this has nothing
Flipping
to do with
a Bo
anything.
Bridges movie.
But I was Jaws, as you guys may know, is being re-released in the theater for the first week of September, which I'm dying to go.
Nice.
Only because I've seen it 100 times more. I've seen it probably 500 times. But my grandson is 5, and I was 5 when that first came out, and we're taking him to see it in the theater because he's never seen Jaws. Anyways. The article that was talking about it that I happened to be reading, there's another Roy Scheider movie that for whatever reason, some of the film after they shot it got damaged, like a ton of footage. And so they never finished this film. They never released it. I don't know the name off the top of my head. I'd have to look it up. But apparently they're using computers to digitally fix everything, including digitally re-put Roy Scheider in the movie.
Maybe we could fix Lost Horizon while we're at it.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
I'm not opposed to that, in all honesty, as long as you credit the actor, for being able to use their image and it goes to either their estate or their family.
Right.
What an opportunity.
I mean, look at Peter Cushing in Rogue One. How awesome was that when he showed up on the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was good. I mean, yeah.
It was Moff Tarkin.
I really thought,
yeah.
I really thought, going back to The Mandalorian, I'm assuming spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen The Mandalorian.
It's 2 years old.
I couldn't care less. It's Star Wars.
It's 2 years old.
I know, but, you never know. There's always somebody. Anyway, I'm just paranoid.
Fast forward 30 seconds.
Yeah, right. So when Luke appeared at the end of season 1, it was pretty impressive. And then when he appeared in season 2, I thought the CG version of him was so much better. Like it seemed like they devoted a lot more money or time or something to him and his scenes. And I was just watching it. I was just like, oh my God, like
It looked really good.
It was stunning.
If you've seen something
good.
like that new version of Gemini Man with Will Smith, that is an example of that is bad CGI. Like I mean, at one point you see him running and like his face is moving. Like, oh. and I mean, it's no wonder because they have like 7 different production logos at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah,
but it's like when you have like Lucas and Lights Art Magic and all that, they're putting everything that they have in these, and Dave Filoni has the clout now to get that sort of stuff, and that's why you got that really great looking Luke. And also having Disney behind him doesn't hurt.
Sure, the money. Yeah, it's getting better. I mean, Grand Moff Tarkin was pretty good. Leia was pretty good. But you could still sort of see it was a little like, okay, I recognize them, but it's a little bit rough. And then even at the end, when Luke made his first appearance at the end of season 1 of Mandalorian, you could tell it was him. But it was like, for me, there was still like a 3 or 4% my brain going, okay, that doesn't really look like a real person. But in the second season, I was just totally like, I knew in my head that wasn't him at that age, but my eyes were totally convinced. Like, that's a real person. You know, that's Luke.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, and
I mean, we could think about what he looked at like at that age. It's like that would be what, like Children of the Damned, or was it Children of the Damned, the one he did where he played the preacher?
No,
probably would have been that age.
We were talking about Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
No. Was it Village of the Damned?
Oh yeah, it was Village of the Damned. Yeah, the remake.
So that's what he should have looked like.
Yeah,
it's weird because I remember hearing that between Star Wars and Empire that he got into a motorcycle accident and smashed his nose.
Yeah,
and they had to rebuild his nose, and that's why they put the Hoth scene in there where the Wampa bashes him in the face.
Yeah.
But like if you look at old pictures of him with his nose before it got fixed, I mean, that was a very straight, you know, like he was a very Hollywood looking, handsome, you know.
Like on the Muppet Show, maybe? Like
when
he was on.
Yeah, before, yeah.
You know, in fact, on the Muppet Show, here's a piece of trivia. He's dressed like Luke in his Bespin fatigues from Empire, but that came out before Empire was released. So it was sort of a sneak preview as to what his character was going to be wearing.
And nobody really realized it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, now we have the internet. Now people are you know, able to hyper fixate on things, and I see theories after theories after theories. I mean, I follow this one channel on YouTube, and I'm a big fan of them, the Film Theorists, and they got tons of ideas about what's going to happen. And my favorite part is that most of the time they are wrong, and it makes me excited because then I'm like, ooh, this is going to happen, and then something different happens, and it's even better.
Oh my God,
that's true.
I
didn't get to premise this, by the way. I'm a Star Trek fan more than a Star Wars fan, so everything is all good to me. You know, the only one I really didn't like was mainly the Phantom Menace and Rogue One. Didn't really care for Rogue One, but
really,
I didn't like it, and I think Forrest Whitaker, that's his weakest performance ever.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
But like when it comes to like these things with like Boba Fett and stuff like that, throw it on. Whatever you want to throw at me for Star Wars. I'll watch your anime show with the rock band playing for Jabba Hutt. Sure, whatever. Like throw it on. It's all good. I'll watch Battle for Endor. I don't care. I don't have any skin in the game. You know? But it's like I was saying, we like as a Star Trek fan, what's our worst movie? The 5th one? Okay, good. You got me. Every other one is a winner. You know, even the last one, Nemesis with Tom Hardy, isn't that a good tie back, right? You know, that's not as bad as the worst Star Wars moment.
Even the remakes of Star Trek are particularly good.
Yeah.
So I agree. I've never been drawn to. Ironically enough, I play a lot of like D&D, but I've never been drawn to fantasy as like a topic. Funny enough, it's never been my thing. So Star Wars has never like truly like excited me in the same way that the MCU would, because the MCU feels a little bit more closer to tone, closer to realism. Yeah. Okay. Whereas Star Wars is space fantasy, which is fine, and to each their own. No shame. But when it comes to what I'm attracted to, like that's why I haven't seen most of the Star Wars stuff. My critiques stand, but I haven't seen most of it because I just am just not drawn to it. I'm not, waiting for the next thing to come out.
That's totally valid though, too. I mean, you can reasonably predict something that you're not going to enjoy And I
Yeah.
mean, you could say that there's probably going to be a slim error in there where you're wrong. You know, where it's like, I think, like, if you don't enjoy Quentin Tarantino's first 4 movies, and then you're like, well, I'm not going to see the rest, and someone's like, well, Kill Bill 2 is the best, man, you're probably not going to enjoy it because of this, you know, the similarities from the stuff that he had in his first couple. So it's like, yeah, I don't think you're wrong in your reasoning there. You may miss out, what, 1 out of 9 times?
You know, and that's the thing too. You know, like you could every single one of his films are different from the others, and so like you said, you know, you if you judge all his movies by maybe the first 2, you're doing yourself a disservice because he may have one that you do like. Like I just did a show.
Maybe that's a bad example.
Well, I just
still wouldn't like him.
My point is, I just did a show earlier, and we talked about this movie called Robo Vampire. It's horrible. It's this Chinese movie from 1988 that completely rips off RoboCop and this other movie called Mr. Vampire, which was light years better than this movie. And my co-host on the show at the end, he says, "You know what? If you're going to watch this movie, go and watch 300 other Hong Kong films that are far, far better than this first, and then watch it." Because his fear was that people would watch this movie and judge all Hong Kong movies based on this movie, and the movie's a piece of shit.
I'm not saying we judge anything based on something else. I'm just saying that when it comes to just topics of interest and like we're all, you know, big fans of something, my diehard fandom does not lie with fantasy stuff. Even Lord of the Rings. I've never seen any of the Lord of the Rings movies, and my girlfriend makes fun of me about it every day.
I put that like above almost everything.
It's never drawn me to the point of like, you know, I really want to see this because I'm just like, it's okay. I saw The Hobbit when it came out, and I saw The Desolation of Smaug, which actually, fun fact, most of the budget of that movie actually just went to getting Benedict Cumberbatch out of dragon form after he was done filming.
That's awesome.
That is a solid ass joke right there.
I didn't come up with it, but I damn as well delivered it.
Wait, you saw 2 of the Hobbit movies? And you've never seen any of the Lord of the Rings trilogy? Not even the first one?
The reason I went to see The Hobbit was because Pop was like, it's before the Lord of the Rings movies. You don't have to have seen anything else. I'm like, all right, cool.
Oh, well, okay. In that case,
yet it starts out in Fellowship of the Ring. So.
Well, yeah, I figured as much when it was like retelling the story, but to me, like, my main Lord of the Rings character is Bilbo Baggins, not Frodo.
Yeah,
but like there's a whole generation that like defined their generation by Frodo.
You're not wrong though. That's the same with me because I grew up on that 1970s Rankin and Boss cartoon.
Yeah, the Ralph Bakshi one.
And then there's that one that comes after, and then there's they go back to the Rankin and Boss with the Return of the King.
Oh,
and that's
right.
what I grew up on. And I was so intrigued by that. And I mean, they did such great stuff with they did Thundercats and they did Flight of Dragons.
Yeah.
The Gordon Dixon book, Dragon and the George and all that. But man, I was so enthralled with that. I mean, I remember in 4th grade, I picked up The Hobbit and I read that thing cover to cover like 2 times. and that to me was like, you didn't have like this media blast of like, you can watch Captain America or you can watch Shazam or we didn't have that. So it was like, all right, I had to pick this up and I dove into it. And it's like, that's why that's always going to be my first love. So Lord of the Rings for me is like, that's far and above just about everything.
I love when they, in like the MCU, when you're dealing with like Bucky Barnes and Captain America and they make a Lord of the Rings reference and Sam turns to him like, oh yeah, that's from The Hobbit. He's like, I know, I read The Hobbit when it came out in 1937.
Oh man, that's
so I would definitely recommend I mean, I know it's a trilogy, but I would recommend at some point in time at least seeing the first one, The Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah,
you'll definitely understand more Led Zeppelin songs. I'll tell you that.
Honestly,
yeah, absolutely. I've been listening to. Sometimes I listen to Ramble On, and I'm like,
Ramble On, that's the Fellowship, and then Battle of Evermore is the Return of the King, Battle of the Pelennor Fields. I just went super nerd, guys. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
We each have their thing. I would much prefer realistic fiction and science fiction over the fantasy stuff, but that's just like what I'm immediately drawn to. I'm not saying I don't like Star Wars. It's just like my friends are diehard Star Wars fans. They know everything inside and out. They grew up on the Clone Wars. They've seen everything twice. They could
It's cool
recite
they had so
Ewok
much
to me.
content too. To like you said, to grow up on that stuff. There was so few content in like the early '80s that it's like, what did we get, guys? We had the two. I almost said Hobbit, but the two Endor movies,
Right? The
one
Ewok
with Wilford
movies.
Brimley and
Yeah.
I'm tired of these Ewoks.
They all got the diabetes.
Yes.
I
And
saw-
it looked like Land of the Lost sort of graphics, and oh man,
Oh,
like
man.
they're fighting the slee stacks.
Man,
I saw.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I saw a good one where it was like oh, when the stormtroopers are raiding Endor, it's like, oh, we weren't expecting special forces. Yeah, well, if you idiots could handle some fucking bears with sticks, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, those two Ewok TV movies, they make Land of the Lost look like The Matrix.
Really, they're that
Yeah.
bad. Wow, they're that bad.
That is a great comparison.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
And that's the thing too. If you love Star Wars, you can go back and watch all this stuff that there is and that's all available. And I totally get it. Because I thought Solo was a cool movie.
Yeah.
And that wasn't really one that was loved by the fans and all that, but I'm like, it was a good story.
Yeah.
You had a shit actor, but it was a good story around him.
I believe he
No?
was Han Solo. I mean, Spence, you and I saw that at the drive-in, right?
Yeah, Solo. Yeah, I
you lucky
like
guys
that
with your
movie. I had
dragons.
seen that, and I'm not, wasn't opposed to it. It was followed by Infinity War, so there's that.
Well, yeah.
That's nice.
But I was happy, very willing and happy to see it, and I really enjoyed that movie. The Ewoks, though, are my favorite part of Star Wars, especially because in some of the media that they have, there's a game where you play, you're playing as like in the big battles, you're playing as the rebels, you're playing as the stormtroopers. When I play that with my friends, there's this one game mode called Ewok Hunt, and so what happens is you have a group of like 10 people on one team. They're all stormtroopers, but they're locked into first person mode on Endor at night with flashlights. So you're locked into that, and then on one person on the other team is the Ewok, and they have like third person view. They can see everything, and they're tiny. So
Wow.
when they kill one of the stormtroopers, that person then goes to the Ewok team. So the idea is that it just gets worse and worse as people start to die, and
sounds
it's absolutely
frightening.
it's terrifying when you're locked in first person and these tiny little bears are coming up and ankle biting you, and you don't even know where they're coming from.
Is that Battlefront?
Yeah, Battlefront 2. Oh,
Wow.
it's so that is one of my favorite type of infected type game modes. That is so scary. And then when you're playing the Ewok, you're like, this is so much fun. I throw this little spear at that big white guy, and we're fine.
My understanding was that when they first were making Jedi, they were supposed to be Wookiees, but then George Lucas decided that, well, Wookiees wouldn't be so primitive, so they changed them to Ewoks.
That's cool. Wait,
I
that's
heard
actually
they
really
changed
cool.
it for marketing reasons.
I had heard marketing. Yeah, they're like, well,
interesting.
we could sell toys of these, and they did.
Yeah.
So,
Which makes sense.
But if they had been Wookiees, I could have bought the fact that the stormtroopers got their asses kicked. But
That's
like
true.
that Jedi, the whole thing with the Ewoks, that was one of the first times where growing up, I remember thinking that the movie had kind of pushed out and watered something down to make it less, I don't know, less scary or less violent or whatever. And I remember even as a kid, I wasn't thinking about it as an overall trend or anything, but that pissed me off. I was like, the Empire has conquered the galaxy. The Empire is feared by pretty much everybody everywhere, and they can't beat a bunch of teddy bears with rocks and sticks.
I like that though. I really enjoyed that because, as I said before, if it was some bears with sticks, we wouldn't be having this conversation. They didn't need special forces, and I really, really enjoyed that. I thought that was really, really funny.
Spencer,
kinda
if I could
interesting.
reach through the screen, I would slap you.
someone told me once they
interesting.
compared it to like the Vietnam conflict, and I'm like,
Yeah,
What?
that's part of
Huh.
it. That's part of it. Is that
No.
it's,
All
it's
right,
this
fine.
level of, like-
Yes, they were on their home turf and yada yada yada. But I'm just saying, like, as a moviegoer,
well, they could have nuked it.
It like destroyed the myth, the concept that they had built up in the first two films was the Empire is to be feared and they're badasses, and then they turned them into a bunch of clueless clowns that got their asses handed to them.
I mean,
it was just
Stormtrooper aim is Stormtrooper aim. That's a running gag from the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
They have Cliff Clavin on there.
There you go. Here's a question. So they always refer to the planet that the Ewoks are on as the moon of Endor. Does that mean there's a planet named Endor and this is one of its moons? Or is that just a way of saying it's called Endor? It's the moon of Endor.
I always took it as there's a planet called Endor. And that's
Yeah,
one of the
that there's a
moons.
planet called, and then these guys are just chilling there.
Justin?
Didn't they go into that
probably did.
when some of this stuff happened in like the last of the Star Wars movies?
I don't
I think
recall.
they did, because a lot of the stuff from the Star Destroyers fell onto this planet. So I think they answer that, and I think there is a planet
Called Endor.
They've done a lot of. I've seen a lot of
with the
hilarious
Kylo
jokes.
Ren stuff and all that. I think they kind of go into this stuff.
I've seen a lot of hilarious jokes. Like there was this one funny bit of people playing Battlefront, and one of the person playing the game was like, "All right, I'm just saying, we should blow up Yavin 4." and it just got funnier and funnier from there. And one of my favorite ones was, "Oh yes, you are part of this monochromatic all white group. I want you to go attack those ethnically diverse rebels."
Oh my God.
I feel like they should have a mode where you actually search for female characters.
Oh God.
With armor that has boobs on it.
Aren't you a little tall to be a stormtrooper?
Well,
Yeah.
Got my hair. Oh, sorry.
I just want to jump back super quick. Well, I guess I'm not. This is kind of maybe it's a separate topic about the whole them creating the PG-13 rating and trying to like decide how much is okay for kids to see. When I was 6 years old, there, Roger, and when maybe Justin too. I don't exactly know how old Justin is, but for the. There was no PG-13. It was either PG or R.
Right.
And
Or G.
Or G. But like when I saw when I saw the original Star Wars, I was 6 years old, and the scene in the cantina where Obi-Wan chops the dude's arm off, and you see the arm on the floor with blood. I was just like, oh fuck, that's awesome. I was 6. It didn't traumatize me. It didn't give me nightmares. It didn't,
Right, yeah.
shatter my fragile concept of reality. It was just part of the movie.
I heard that
Yeah.
Lucas added that in to get the PG rating because it was going to be rated G.
Oh my god.
Really? That's interesting. I mean, they have tons of small details like that all throughout the franchise of doing certain things, and I love the lore of Star Wars. I mean, the Mandalorians, their whole concept is, oh, Jedis can block lasers. Here, have some buckshot.
Yeah.
Right.
And they have that armor that blocks lasers too. It's like, why didn't anybody else think of that?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And once again, with the rating thing, yeah, there's some stuff that you can show to kids and some stuff you can't show to kids. And growing up, I had two mentalities. One parent said, no, sex is okay, violence is not. And the other one said, no, sex is not okay, violence is great.
That was my household growing up. The second one.
I think I saw Barbarella at age 5 because they told us it was like He-Man, and I don't think I've turned back from that life-defining moment. I'm like, well, I like whatever that is.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I mean, I've watched with Aiden now. We watched all the Terminator movies, watched all the Predator movies, not all the Alien movies. And what else? RoboCop. It's like he's right at that age now where he can start watching all these cool action movies that don't have sex because, as you know, sex is bad, violence is good. So,
But, I mean, hold on. It's kind of necessary in
Very
Terminator.
80s
It's a large
concept.
plot point.
RoboCop's a little graphic though.
RoboCop is an R, like
Yeah,
hard R.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a, yeah,
It's
that
not
is-
like
that's-
Highlander hard R,
It
but
was almost given an NC-17. They had to cut it to get an R.
right.
They,
I mean, he
and
shoots a guy in the dick. Yes.
I liked it. Love the concept of we have this character here, we don't know much about him, but then feel so awful about the way he was left the scene that we now are interested in seeing how he reclaims his life. Like that's really great. It's just really, really graphic to show to a child.
Yeah.
And the best thing
You know-
that really throws people off is you got Red Foreman from that 70s show as the bad guy.
Yeah, that was great. I love
Oh my
that.
God. How did they miss out on him? It's
Oh my
he
God.
should have been doing more of these things.
He was so awesome as Clarence
Such a
Bodiger.
great villain.
Yes.
But in my defense, that's the kind of movie my parents would have taken me to see at that age.
No, yeah,
And
I know.
I did
know.
see those kind of movies.
Yeah, you did, and it fucked you up hardcore.
And here I am now.
I I think Jaws is a great coming of age film, and to your point about showing these to your kids, if you do it with them, that's a different experience than them watching it with their friends or them watching it, like I used to watch stuff like a latchkey kid because no one was home, and so here I am like, oh, there's a rain delay on the Red Sox game, so they're gonna have Total Recall on. That's different than like watching it with your dad.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
And of course, they
that's
didn't
true.
show the third boob in that version because it was on like basic cable or something.
That's
so.
funny.
yeah, and there's some stuff like sometimes when you experience a movie that has like some specifically very scary parts. I mean, like The Matrix for the first 45 minutes is like not my favorite part of the movie, but then there's just a turning point, and that's the stuff I remember as a kid. But I can now watch The Matrix and be like, okay, cool. I can get past this like really, really intense, very scary scene. Oh my God, that's crazy. And then we finally get to the action stuff. But as a kid, it like didn't stick in my head for whatever reason.
Right. Well,
that naval robot really messed me
Oh,
up.
that was
yeah, that was-
Oh
Yep.
my God. Or him, like all of a sudden his mouth disappears.
That was awful.
That freaks
Like
me out.
pulling goo out of his face when he's stuck in the pod. Yeah.
Oh God, yes.
What did you guys think of the last Matrix? There's a question
I
for
enjoyed
you.
it. I just don't remember it.
didn't
I gotta
see it.
watch it
It
again.
wasn't that good. I remember being slightly disappointed with it, and I remember the Wachowskis basically fell into the trap of, okay, we're gonna make Matrix 2, and they made Matrix 2, and it was really enjoyable, save some script writing critiques, and then they made Matrix 4, and they actually fell into the trap that they avoided 10, 20 years ago of making Neo like a complete and total loser for now most of this movie, and now we needed to have Trinity show up when we already had Neo.
Yeah.
But I did like the concept that the machines changed up their strategy.
Yeah.
I did
Yeah,
like that. I really loved Neil Patrick Harris. I thought he did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
Truly, I thought it was really it was scary for me because I'm a game design major. So part of the whole thing is that he's a game maker.
Oh, you're a game design major? I didn't know that.
Yeah, that hits so different.
Oh, that's
Well,
why. Okay.
What do you have for movies then? You have that and Grandma's Boy.
I don't even know what that is.
Oh, you don't know Grandma? Oh my God, you have to
I
watch
think I-
Grandma's Boy.
I don't know
think
that
I-
movie either.
It's a Happy Madison movie with Alan
Wow.
Corbett, who was from The Wedding Singer. He was the driver in
Okay.
that, if you remember that one. But it's about a game designer, and he lives at home with his grandmother. And it's kind of like a I call it like a raunchy comedy or something like that from them. And there's some really, really funny performances in it. And it has like Shirley from the Partridge Family.
Oh wow.
And who's the Doris Grau? I think it was that her name, Doris from Everybody Loves Raymond. And
That was the character's name, yeah.
yeah. So, but the main point is the main character is a game designer. So now you've got two movies.
Yeah,
That's hilarious.
I mean,
It's pretty funny. I
it's
like
a
it a
good
lot.
movie. It's just I thought that the overarching message was like kind of really weak compared to the philosophical like front load they had in the previous movies that I was all for, and they devalued one of my favorite characters ever, and I was a little disappointed in that. But the thing I thought was really good and scary was when they were like, yes, they now have these like drones that aren't really people. That I thought was awful.
Yeah.
That was terrifying. It was worse than the agents. It made the agents feel like the preference, because we can fight the agents and run. We can't run from these fucking mobs.
right. Spence, I
what,
wanted
what a comment on how things have changed too, where now you've got like all these bots on the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was kind of like that. They did a good job reflecting, how it is now, especially with social media and everybody's so abusive to each other.
Spence, I wanted to tell the story. I may have told this on the show once before about your first experience with The Matrix. Spencer is 6 years old. We're sitting on the couch. We're flicking through the channels, and I happen upon The Matrix, and it was somewhere in the middle of the movie. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I love this film. And he's like, oh, what's it about? And I explained to him the premise, and he's like, I want to see that. I'm like, okay. So I go to my shelf and pull the DVD off and throw it in. And I have never, ever in my life seen a 6-year-old sit through a 2 hour, I think it's 2 hours plus, a 2 hour plus movie with his jaw on the floor the entire time. He barely said a word. He was captivated by this movie. And that's when I knew that, all right, that's the point. 5 and 6 years old is where you start laying the groundwork with this stuff, because his mind, like literally like the meme, I saw his head just go
That's the age I saw Back to the Future and Ghostbusters and those and like Goonies and like all of those movies stick with me today. And you're exactly right. That was that moment of that they were ingrained.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably it too, because Ghostbusters, one of my all-time favorite movies to this day will be Ghostbusters. And is it that good a movie? Probably not. But is it funny enough?
Hey! Now don't throw shade on the original Ghostbusters.
But every movie has its flaws. But this movie is just so not just even nostalgic. It's just so good. It holds up when you watch it again.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. I love that movie, and I probably did see that.
And the sequel's good too.
Yeah.
It is quotable. Me and Pop have done that. I'm just seeing it and just putting it on mute and just saying some of the dialogue.
Raj, how old is Aiden now?
He's 5.
Oh, he's 5. Okay.
Yeah, that's why I can't wait to take him to see Jaws.
I saw they were filming that
available in my area. I don't see it.
I do not want to go see Jaws in theaters just because I have seen it in theaters and
Yeah.
I'm good.
You know,
I get Aiden, but like I'm good.
Spence, do you remember we went to at the time we were in New Hampshire and there was this Chunky Cinema Pub, which is, one of those theaters you go and order food and watch the movie. And
oh yeah, Fran, my brother, after the movie, he turns to Roger and go, "I now understand most of what you say."
That's so great.
Oh my God! Because it's obviously it's my girlfriend at the time, my girlfriend's son. It's my wife's, who's my stepson. But yeah, it's like now I understand half of what you say.
Yeah, that was really funny because I'm like, well, yeah. Now, don't you get some of the references? I showed Lauren my girlfriend, Austin Powers for the first time, and she's like, oh my God, I get it.
Yep.
There was a commercial on the other day, and it was about something like Oral-B or something. And I looked at Charlie and I go, well, I hope it's mostly oral.
So you're saying your personality is half Jaws, half Austin Powers?
No, my personality is entirely movie and TV quotes. I still quote Three's Company to this day.
He's said things to me that I repeat. I don't even know where they're from. Not everything's always a cited
wow,
source.
that came from an episode of Kate and Allie. Deep cut.
Oh, thankfully I never watched that show.
Yeah, I know. I just pulled that one out.
Although I am familiar with it. Jane Curtin, I know.
Yeah.
Have any of you guys seen Samaritan yet?
No, I was gonna watch it last night, but we ended up finishing Stranger Things.
What is that on?
It's on
Prime, isn't it?
Amazon Prime, yeah.
Yeah.
I might actually watch that after this show. So
yeah.
I'm probably gonna go watch She-Hulk.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, no, that was good.
I just want to see Blonsky.
We were watching the final episode of the latest season of Stranger Things, and we were about halfway through, and I paused it, and I'm like, do you want to watch the movie or not? And she's like, I don't know. This is really goddamn good. We really should finish it. And I'm like, okay. So we finished
I cannot fault you for that because that is good.
Oh my
I have
Season
some words
4
about
was
Stranger
really
Things.
good.
Oh my God.
I've never seen Stranger Things. The only thing
What?
It's a weird oxymoron. I know, right? It's a weird oxymoron for me because I'm a big D&D fan. So when they named the big monster Demogorgon, that's pretty great. But then when I have to sit my friends down and explain to them that the Stranger Things Demogorgon is nothing like the D&D Demogorgon that actually affects my games, I'm like, guys, I know I'm going to reality check you.
They're playing second edition. That's why.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
No, we are 5th edition babies, and I will not learn AD&D.
But the thing about the D&D in the show is that's how they relate to the world. So when they encounter a real monster, they need to put it in terms that they can understand, and that's why they, even if it's not exactly the same, because it's not, they know full well it's not the Demogorgon from D&D, but that's what it actually behaves like.
I know. It's just what ends up happening to audiences and stuff like that. Like I was, there's this game that it's called Dead by Daylight, and the part of the gameplay is it's like slasher versus people. And so what oh God, hang on. What ends up happening is they had the Demogorgon as one of the monsters you could play as, and then later on I saw some people online talking about like, oh, Vecna could be a great addition to Dead by Daylight, and I'm like, hey, wait, Vecna from D&D? I'm like, I love Vecna. He's in all my games. He's a great character. Holy shit, he's a super fun god. And then I was looking through the comments, I'm like, oh, he's a Stranger Things villain, isn't he?
Yeah.
And I had to look that one up.
I've had those moments. Yeah,
I had to look him up.
That's
as
when you're
Stranger
like
Things
so
villain.
deep into geek. You're like, oh yeah.
Yeah, my geek is better than your geek. That's how I felt when
Dude,
explaining Stranger
I'll tell you a story. Someone said something to me. I was like, "Oh, who are you going to be for Halloween?" They're like, "Oh, I'm going to be Medea." I'm like, "Oh, I know who that is. Yeah, the wife of Jason from Jason and the Argonauts. You know, when they went after the Golden Fleece."
Right.
I kept going on like this for about 5 minutes, like an absolute ass. And then she's like, "No, like Medea goes to jail." And I was like, "Oh."
Oh, I've heard of that. I don't even know who
I've
that
not
is.
seen those.
Yeah, but I was so deep into like the geeky part of like Greek mythology
Well,
that I was
yeah.
like, oh my god, we can talk about this and stuff. And it's like, no, it was not.
Well, that's what I thought when you said it. I was like, oh, the.
Yeah, I know. Because
Yeah, I'm like, oh,
those
that's
are
really
the
sick.
circles we travel in.
Well, that was like Pat was telling me about him and his wife went, this was a while ago, a few months ago. They went to some thing, I don't know what it was, and he said, "Oh, it was like this drag." He goes, "It's like RuPaul's Drag Race," and I'm like, "Okay, they're going to be racing cars. Is it
No.
indoors or
Yeah,
outdoors?"
no.
You know, I had no idea. I had to look it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
That's-
huge into that. Absolutely.
Well, yeah, like my favorite one in pop culture these days is my girlfriend's big into special effects and makeup and stuff, so she watches the show Face Off quite consistently.
yeah.
Now, my first experience with the term Face Off is a John Travolta Nicolas Cage movie, which is very good, mind you. So whenever somebody mentions Face Off, I'm like, just to clarify, are we talking about my Face Off or your Face Off?
Yeah.
I could eat a peach all day.
I wanna
No
take
more
his
drugs
face.
For that man.
Oh man,
It's
I
like
gotta watch that.
looking
again.
in a mirror, only no.
Yeah.
Did you guys watch the new Nicolas Cage? The was it Unshakable, massive talent, the weight of massive
No,
talent?
I heard that
the
was good.
unbearable weight of massive
that-
talent.
I saw
heard
that
that
in
was
the theaters. I absolutely adore that movie, and it ties into The Mandalorian because you got Pedro Pascal in it.
Oh wow.
And yeah, it's such a meta movie, and it's like I've never seen anything, probably with the exception of like Being John Malkovich, that was more meta than this film.
That was
It was so.
Being John Malkovich.
I never thought we would go there today, but hey, here we are. Yeah,
Spence,
that's such a wonderful mind fuck of a movie.
Spence, are you
This one is
familiar with
just
that?
right there?
You've explained the concept that someone somewhere at some point wakes up as John Malkovich and it just gets worse from there.
No. John Cusack goes to this office where the ceiling's like 4 foot high or something ridiculous.
The half floor.
Yeah. And he finds a small door, and he opens the door and goes inside and finds out that he's in John Malkovich's head, and he can see through his eyes and hear what he's hearing and all that stuff. And then something happens, I forget exactly what, and he gets flushed out of his ear and ends up on like the Jersey Turnpike or something.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
It is
Yeah.
so bizarre. It's like, but it's
Cameron
an experience.
Diaz is in it. Catherine Keener, I think.
It's good. It's actually good not to know anything about it. Just go watch.
Yeah,
definitely.
exactly.
Very surreal and it messed up and
Funny
but
enough,
it's great.
I've never been drawn to that either. Is I find surreal stuff that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, or at least doesn't have a concrete answer by the end of the movie. That actually gets on my nerves.
Oh, so
Yeah,
you're not a
that-
fan of Time Bandits? Okay.
Nope, Time Bandits was. I hated that movie as a child. I hate it now. The Shining. I hated
Brazil.
that movie then. I hate it now.
Oh, my
I-
God.
Oh,
stuff like
Brazil
that.
is awesome.
Yeah,
I haven't seen Brazil in years.
I know. I gotta watch that again.
Spence,
I just don't get the appeal.
agree with you to a point. Like if it makes a little bit of sense and they get me interested in what's going to happen, and then they really don't go anywhere with it, that irritates me. But when it gets to a certain level of abnormal, like there's no logic to this. It's just silly. You just have to accept whatever they throw at you. I mean, I can't always do that, but I know exactly where you're coming from.
Yeah, I think to a point, what ends up happening is it sucks the fun out of watching the movie because I'm so confused
Yeah.
that when I'm trying to piece it together, because when I'm watching a movie, I'm expecting at least a fully told story.
Yeah.
You know, don't get me wrong. I get craziness and stuff like that, and you want to set something up, makes it different. Like if you like my favorite anime ever, Attack on Titan. If you told that show in a like timeline of events as they actually happened, you would get a very, very lame show. So I get that you have to have some storytelling, but after a certain point, I get lost because I'm trying to piece it together. I'm like, ooh, what's the twist going to be? Oh, we really are just in this like crazy ass world. Okay, that's it. Shit.
But Spence,
That's over now, right? That's fourth. Was it fourth or fifth season? That's done.
Fourth season. I haven't
Yeah.
actually finished that. But if you played that through from a timeline of like seeing all of the events, it would lose the value of the first 3 seasons, first two and a half.
Spence, and I know you constantly shit on this movie, but I've told you before, if you put Pulp Fiction in order of the events in the film, the climax would happen somewhere in the middle.
I have seen Pulp Fiction. I like it. There's just a particular moment that I think can be removed.
Well, yeah.
But besides that, if you're
Say
right,
what
that's
again?
actually a good movie. I didn't understand the necessity of that. I find
it
sex in
also
movies to be
is
unnecessary.
important because it changed storytelling. It changed the way that things were done. Like, I mean, even like the soundtrack, the selection of movie, the way it was shot. Like, it's very like analogous to like a Citizen Kane type of moment for cinema goers because there were so many copycats of that movie afterwards.
Right.
It changed the zeitgeist.
Well, and
So it's like.
I get it. But that movie's not surreal enough. It's just the storytelling and the style is what makes it a little weird. So it's a little bit like, okay, cool. Oh, okay, John Travolta just got killed. Now we're watching a story of John Travolta in it. Okay, cool. This is clearly a different point in the thing. There's a consistency among that.
It's kind of like Kurt Vonnegut, writing a little bit. Too, like leads into that sort of thing. So I guess if you're drawn to that sort of thing, it would make sense. But
the thing about Pulp Fiction is the way Tarantino did the dialogue. They were characters like, for example, Jules and what's his name, John Travolta, and
Vinny Vega.
Yeah, and they're hitmen, but their dialogue is not driving the plot forward. They're talking about everyday things. You can relate to the characters because they're not telling the audience, giving the audience information about the plot. They're just living their lives, having conversations that ordinary people have, and you just watch the events unfold as they happen. And that's, to me, what makes that movie sort of important in cinema history.
Does he look like a bitch? I quote that consistently.
One of my favorite actors is in that scene, Frank Whaley.
Which who's he?
He's the guy that he's saying that to.
Oh, the kid.
Yeah.
Kahuna Burger. They put a big slice of pineapple on it. Mind if I take a sip?
I love Samuel L. Jackson. I'll watch anything with him in it. If his name's attached to it, I'm in. I love the fact that he basically fucking like strong-armed his way onto the Star Wars scene with the purple lightsaber.
Yeah.
He's like, no, I want to find myself in this battle. You know what I mean? Like, I want to be able to see myself. And they added in great lore, but anything with Samuel L. Jackson in it is fucking awesome.
He makes the movie Snakes on a Plane worth watching.
I love that movie. And that is such a controversial thing to say, but it delivers on what the title says.
Right.
Sometimes
on
you
this
just
plane.
need it. Sometimes that's all you want. Sometimes you just want some motherfucking snakes on a motherfucking plane.
It's very self-indulgent, but it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what movies
you just
can
have to
be.
strap in and just enjoy it insteod of trying to be like, that's not what would really happen.
Have you guys
Like
ever
Cowboys
heard?
and Aliens.
Right. Have you guys ever heard it's on YouTube?
Well, no, that's a different kind of suspension of disbelief.
Have you ever
Watching
heard on YouTube they have I don't know if it's still there, but it's Samuel Jackson reading "Go the Fuck to Sleep."
Yes. Yeah.
I forget that he got famous at a really like later in life type age than with Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember him in Coming to America, the first R-rated movie I ever saw.
He was in Coming to America?
Yeah, he tries to rob the McDowells, and then he gets hit with the mop from Akeem.
Oh. Okay, right. Yeah, I like Samuel L. Jackson. I don't have anything against him, if he's given a good role and he plays it well. But the thing that a lot of people love about him that I don't love about him is that he's so one note that like all of his performances end up being him acting the same. He's got like 4 face expressions and one tone of voice, and
Did you see Spiral?
Oh, that was
he needed to be
in
that more.
He was really good in
Yeah.
that. And a lot
I
more
needed
dynamic
more
than
of him in that
what you're
movie.
describing.
Yeah.
You're right.
Spiral. Okay,
it's the
it's
newest
a
Saw
Saw
movie.
Put that on my list.
And
I
Chris
love
Rock
the
actually
Saw
did a
franchise.
good job in that.
Chris Rock had a lot of creative
It's
control
just-
in that. I love
yeah.
that movie. I think it's fucking hilarious. First
Absolute telegraph, though, of what was going to happen. I'm like, oh, here's what's going to happen. Oh, see what that's in the box? That's this. And I was like, totally
I don't
right.
know.
What's in the box?
Exactly.
I wouldn't
If
go
you've
so
seen
far.
one Saw movie, you pretty much have an idea of who the bad guy is.
Yeah, but it's how it plays out. I mean, to me, the Saw movies are like a tightly written TV show because there's stuff in later films that goes back and explains things in the first
Yeah.
few films.
Yep.
The continuity is so tight in those movies. It's amazing. I fucking love the Saw
Yeah,
movies.
James Wan did a really good job on the ones that I don't know if he did all of them.
No, he didn't do all. I think Lee Winnell may have directed one or two of them.
Yeah. I'm with you. It's a good series because it's not like watching Hellraiser and you're like, oh, how does this turn out to the other ones? Oh, it's not related at all.
Completely,
Yeah.
like kind of like Halloween, where it's like, oh, we are in a new timeline on movie
Exactly.
3.
But you can
Lovely.
watch Phantasm and you have the same characters going all the way through, and it's like, okay, cool, Reggie's here.
I like the Saw franchise, and yes, the critiques I've heard against it are pretty valid. I mean, it's they have some like backward storytelling and at some moments, but overall, I like it, and I like what you said, Pop, to an extent when you described it. You described it as like a vigilante story,
Yes.
in a way, and I kind of hope they lean into that because that's really what Spiral was.
Yeah.
Was
You
this
think they'll
big
make more?
vigilante story? And
I hope so.
I hope they do because and Chris Rock, him and Samuel L. Jackson in the same scene together, pretty fucking awesome. My opinion, pretty great.
I
love
wanted
them
more
in
of him in that because I thought he was so compelling. I will disagree with you guys on the Samuel L. Jackson, but that is exactly how I feel about Jack Nicholson. So I understand your passionate feeling about that because to me, Jack Nicholson always plays the same character, and you're like, oh, let's give him an Oscar for what he's playing and as
Same
good as
thing
it
again.
gets.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he already did that in
Right.
Batman and The Shining, and what's the only original thing he did was maybe Chinatown or
Wolf.
Oh my God. Yeah, I was
I
just
see
gonna
where
say
you're
One
coming
Flew Over
from.
the Cuckoo Nest. but okay,
I
wait,
see
because
where you're
that's a
coming from.
subdued, Jack Nicholson. But otherwise, it's
Yeah.
like if you see Anger Management, that's just him doing the same role, but
That
turning it
movie's
up to
fucking
11.
stupid.
Yeah.
It's like.
Oh, jeez.
So I totally get what you're saying. I like Samuel L. Jackson because I've seen him in like Caveman's Valentine. He's different in The Incredibles. He's different in Django
He's not really
Unchained.
different in The Incredibles, actually.
Yeah,
I mean,
Well, from
he's
that
not,
movie,
he's not
yeah.
saying the F word, but he's, yeah.
Where is my super
That's
suit?
true. He is a little bit different. You're right.
But I mean, I go back to like Amos and Andrew with Nicolas Cage and Die Hard and those, and then you get to Jurassic Park, and it's like, yeah, these are different flavors of the same actor. So
Jurassic Park's
I
the
enjoy
first
him.
time I'd ever seen him.
Yeah. Same.
Oh,
No,
really? Wow.
I saw him. He was in what's the Harrison Ford Tom Clancy movie? The first one.
Oh,
Clear-
right.
Clear
The
and Present
Patriot.
Danger?
Yeah.
Patriots. Yeah.
No, yeah, Patriot Games. Yeah, he was in that. I think before
That's
Jurassic
right.
Park.
Yeah,
So
he's been in a ton of stuff.
real quick here, and then we're going to start to wrap things up. I just looked it up. So Spiral, the latest Saw movie, its budget was $20 million, and its worldwide box office was $39 million. So it made the budget back and then some, but I don't know if that's going to warrant the sequel. Hopefully it will.
I'm
Is it
hoping what they
WB
do-
owned?
Is what?
Is it owned by Warner Brothers?
I don't know. It doesn't say here.
Yeah, because if it was a Netflix series, it would already be canceled. If it was, a WB movie, like they're going in a different direction.
I'm hoping what they do is they do lower budget, but then give it to some really like big fan of the franchise indie director and put Chris Rock in it. That's really all I want because I
Yeah,
would
instead
not
of Chris
mind
Rock
watching
doing
Chris Rock follow through the story a little bit because one of the things I like about Saw, but I hope they don't do again, was if you watch the franchise, we're following the villain mostly. So one of the things I like is this movie very much has a clear protagonist and, has a really, really interesting dynamic with how things between the protagonist and the antagonist work. And I hope we don't follow the antagonist the whole time. And then the antagonist changes a couple of times.
It's like 2 and 3 is like the opposite, but kind of like it's like a triple cross. If you think about what you just said, going back to those movies, I'm like, damn, he's right, except for 2 and 3.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, even 2 and 3, we're still like invested. We're big invested into the. At the end of the day, Jigsaw's the bad guy. No matter how you slice it up, he's not the he's the main character, but he's not the.
But he's like the Killmonger because or like the Thanos because it's like he's somewhat relatable because he's clearly been wronged.
Right.
And
This is true, but my point is with Chris Rock, we have a clear protagonist now, and somebody who defies the zeitgeist of being one of the followers. So instead of us following, John Kramer and then Amanda and then Hoffman, we're gonna follow something else. That's what I hope they do. Is that
that's an interesting. I never thought about it.
And John Kramer, Jigsaw, in the first few movies, he is a lot like Dr. Anton Fibes from the Abominable Dr. Fibes and Dr. Fibes Rises Again. He's this sort of anti-hero who has been wronged. His wife was, in his eyes, his wife was failed by these doctors. So the first movie, he takes revenge on them. Because she dies, and then the second movie he's trying to bring her back to life, but he's got to kill anyone that gets in his way. And I think it's the same thing. Now, real quick, I looked it up here. So Lionsgate owns the Saw franchise, which is good. And according to an article on Looper from, I'm having a hard time seeing, on May 14th of this year, the writer said that basically a new script is in the works.
Yeah, I've read that. I've read that, like, there's a lot of stuff that they want to do, that they want to bring Tobin Bell back. They want to make, like, a Saw X and stuff like that.
Saw in space. They already have it. It's called Event Horizon. I love it.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, okay.
It's my favorite horror franchise.
I remember that first movie is one of the many that Roger sat down to watch with me after he had seen it, but I had never seen it. And I think it was, I'm guessing that it was kind of like a hobby for him to watch me react to things when, like, he knew what was coming, but I didn't. And then, he would just watch me freak out.
I love doing that.
The end of the first movie, when the guy sits up at the end, I was like, no way!
Yeah. I ran a Blockbuster, and I can tell you that we ran out of that movie just like on a weekly basis. Mm-hmm. Like, and people would come in and they would rent, all of them in order all the way. Like, oh man. And Saw never ever waned in popularity.
Wow.
Yeah. It's got a very dedicated fan base, of which I am now a part of, and I am very happy to be here. Overall.
That's awesome. All right, guys. Well, we've been going at it for quite a long time now, so we're going to wrap things up here because we could literally talk all night long.
Probably true. Yeah.
you got like a 2-episode thing going on.
I know. I was thinking I might, depending on how long it actually turns out to be. It's hard to tell because I started it later in the timeline. But either way, we're going to continue with doing this show on a regular basis. Maybe once every other month or once a month, wherever we can schedule it in. Because I think this is fun. I think it's interesting. I love shooting the shit with you guys about this stuff. And there's so many other things to talk about. I mean, we've talked a lot about the MCU and the DC extended universe and all that stuff, and we had a few tangents here and there, but I think there's a lot of cool stuff that we could be really getting into. So, Justin, why don't you tell the listeners where they can find you online?
You can check me out at the Epic Tales from the Sewers Ninja Turtle podcast. So there's two kind of ways that I do the show. First, I read through the comics, and I'm doing the run from 2011, the IDW run that's actually still going on right now, and the Turtle comics from when I was a kid, the Turtle Adventures. And I actually go through and I do the character voices. Oh, so nice. My goal was to have something where you can sit down, maybe you want to listen to it with the kids or anything else like that. You can learn the stories because the origin story is way different in this one. So, and the goal is to keep it going all the way through current. But along that journey, I've also kind of started reaching out and interviewing people like the creators, like I've had Kevin Eastman on, so having people who are either like artists or writers or things, I had the guy that wrote a book about gross pizzas. I had a guy that wrote a book about the Ninja Turtle action figure line. So it gets kind of like down those sort of things. So it's all turtle adjacent. So, because that's one of my passions, one thing that I love and I'm fascinated with.
That's awesome.
There's that. We have a Batman show on the Dorkening Network with Leo Pond and Brandon Powers and myself called The Dork Night. It's a bi-weekly show, and our other show is called Comics Paradox, where we talk about what ifs. We did the book What If Jane Foster Became Thor, and all of us were just like really surprised with how awful this book was. And it was like one of those things we're like, wow, they're basing a movie on this. It was literally one of the lamest comics I've ever read. It's so funny because I'm not a huge fan of Thor, but like literally, like he just constantly goes, "Oh, she'll never love me because I'm lame," and we're like, "Yes, yes, exactly." But it's just like we'll do that. Like we've talked, since Brandon is such a huge fan of Superman, we've talked about like all these alternate Superman books, like The Last Son of Krypton, where he is a human that came to Krypton instead of him being sent to Earth, and it's like such a juxtaposition. It's like, and it's really interesting to get into these because Brandon's really into those sort of like alternate reality things. So that's fun. But yeah, Comics Paradox and the Dork Night podcast and Epic Tales from the Sewers.
Awesome.
I love them.
So I just want to say thank you, Justin, and thank you, Mike and Spency, for joining us on the this first episode of the show within the show called Pop Culture Chat. And folks, we'll be doing this on a regular basis. You can check out our other shows at havenpodcasts.com. And, Then Is Now Podcast is on all the podcasting apps. So if you like what you're hearing, please go to wherever you download them from. And if you could leave us a great review, that'd be awesome. It'll bump us up on the algorithm so other people can find us. If you want to chime in about what we've talked about today on Pop Culture Chat, we'd love your opinion. We went over quite a bit of stuff today, so there's got to be somebody out there with an opinion. So please send us your email at thenisnow42@gmail.com and put Pop Culture Chat in the subject line. All of our links, including our YouTube page, will be in the show notes. So I just want to say thank you for joining us today. Re-Gor out.
For more shows like the one you just heard, check out the Dorkening Podcast Network at thedorkening.com.